More hand sanitizer.
I know. It's leftover from the last ones. I'm trying to use it.
Yeah, I'm just looking to see,
What are you looking for?
well, I was just looking to see how many have joined us, but from this table, you can't really see either screen. It's okay.
Yeah, we have about 14 people joining remotely.
They're probably expecting me to join about 7:20 since the issues last meeting.
Well,
All right. Take it away, Will.
let's spoil that expectation.
7 o'clock.
Right. Well, I'm calling this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. It's a meeting of the Scio Township Board of Trustees. We are meeting in person, although there is remote participation. When we call the roll, those members who are present in person may simply say present. Those who are participating remotely, please indicate the municipality and county in which you are located. With that, clerk, please call the roll.
Hathaway,
Present.
Palmer. Present. Flintoft, present. Courteau is absent. Jerome.
Present.
Knol.
Present, Scio Township, Washington County.
Vogel.
Here.
We have quorum.
Great. Next item is adoption of the agenda, and before we adopt the agenda, I'd like to offer a couple of changes. One, I would like to move the item G, reports, to the end of the meeting, after new business, before item L, public comment. And I'd also like to remove from the consent agenda items I5, 6, 7, and 8, and actually not place them anywhere else on the agenda. We'll just remove those because at the council of our township attorney, we'd like to do some further review of those resolutions. So we'll intend to bring those back at our next regular meeting on August 10th, which of course will have an implication in terms of the public hearing that they relate to. That would be moved to the first meeting in September, which I think is September, I've forgotten which date it is. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, it would be the second Tuesday in September, which is probably like the 14th or something like that. Are there any other changes
Did that impact the construction timing for these projects? Or is
we can deal with those issues later. In any case, are there any other changes to the agenda?
the one item I'd like to suggest pulling out of the consent agenda is I-4. It's a $46,000 item, and I'm sure it's all great. I'd just like to understand a bit more about it.
Absolutely.
So that would move to new business.
Okay.
I move the agenda as amended.
All right, were there any other changes? Do we want to add the minutes from the 22nd back to this agenda? That'd be June 22nd? So that would be one more.
22nd. Is it?
One more item to add. So would that go under D?
It goes
Wherever we
wherever you
put
would
it.
like it to go.
Well, I guess it would be approval of minutes. So why don't we put that under D as item D?
D3?
D3.
So to be clear, to add possible action, approval of minutes of regular meeting of June 22nd.
Yes.
Those I didn't see those in the deck.
Well, that would be the minutes that we approved at our last meeting. So they're already approved minutes, but we're adding them to this section of.
We'll want to revisit them.
I
Revisit them.
see.
So we could make that more clear, Jane, maybe, you know.
Revisit approval of minutes.
Sure.
I'll support Alex's motion. Yeah, we're all done.
Okay. So we have a motion by Jerome, support by Palmer to adopt the agenda as amended. Please call the roll.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Flintoft, yes. Jerome,
Yes.
Knol,
Yes.
Vogel.
Yes.
Agenda adopted as amended.
The next item is approval of minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes. Why don't we do them in order?
I understand. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'd just like to make a comment regarding the minutes in general, so I wait my turn. But
Unless you wanted to make a motion.
I will. I just wanted to take a moment to address the minutes that were amended at the last meeting and the changes that were made to public comment, because I want to take this opportunity to apologize for the removal of particular comments made by the public. It was not intended, and I want to make this clear, and I stated it at the end of the meeting, but some people have missed this, in any way to silence anyone's opportunity to express their concerns. That's why we have your ability to write into the township. It's not amended in any fashion. We provide 3 minutes for the public to speak. It's not amended in any fashion. My concern remains the same in that I have a concern about maintaining or the inability to maintain objectivity when we're capturing the comments of the public. I want to state I actually agree with the statement from some of the individuals regarding the process for the Railroad Street SAD should have and could have been handled better. I am actually in agreement with that statement. My concerns, as I say, remain with regards to the capturing of public comment. And that's why we have recording of this. My concern is that we have 3 minutes of people speaking and we're trying to summarize it in that one instance in a span of 16 words, which I think is inadequate and quite frankly inaccurate. It has nothing to do, this is no commentary on the individual capturing the public comment. That's an impossible task to summarize what someone is thinking from a 3-minute conversation. So I just want to make sure that I'm absolutely clear on that. And I think that Scio, one, I apologize again. 2, I think Scio needs to develop proper tools to accurately reflect the public comment. And this will be taken up when we talk about the rules of order. And I would like to make a motion, actually 2 motions. One motion is to rescind the amended minutes from the July 22nd meeting. June 22nd meeting, my apologies. And to approve those minutes with the public comment in its entirety captured as it was presented at the June 22nd meeting. And then secondly, I'd like to make a motion with regards to the minutes of the last 2 meetings to table them.
Why don't we do that separately?
That's fine. So that would be my motion, to rescind the vote and to approve the inclusion of the entirety of the public comment for which was captured on the June 22nd meeting. Sorry, it was a while back.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. That would be my motion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Jerome. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Oh, lots of seconds.
Lots of seconds. All right.
Go ahead,
Well,
Kathy.
Second by Trustee Knol. And just to make sure that we're clear on what the motion is to rescind the approval of the June 22nd minutes as they were amended, and instead to approve them without the amendments.
Public comment without amendments, that's correct.
Okay. Please call the roll.
Are
Oh,
we
sorry.
doing that?
Discussion.
Oh, discussion, sorry.
Jessica Flintoft, Clerk. Thank you, Alec, for bringing this motion. I would again say I think a lot of the corrections that were made were spot on, and so I would ask if you would entertain a friendly amendment to just change the two public comment changes. Under F, public comment, Leanne Phillips note said that attending board meetings has revealed a troubling pattern of dishonesty, complicity, and manipulation. Ask trustees to act individually, that be included in full. And the second one, under H1 on the Compensation Commission, Jillian Carey expressed doubt that the Compensation Commission would work because, and to include this stricken language, the Board of Trustees does what it wants regardless of citizen input. And with just those two, if we could just rescind just those two amendments, that would be my suggestion.
Oh, okay, so that's an amendment to the motion, and it makes specific just those two comments to be sort of returned to their original form, the rest of the changes
Yes.
to be left intact.
Yes.
Is that, and that's, and that's acceptable to you? Kathy?
Acceptable to you, Kathy?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sorry, go ahead. Trustee Knol.
I too wanted to make a few comments about what happened at the last meeting. In general, the purpose of changing any draft minutes is to make them more factually correct. And the minutes should reflect, to the best of our ability, what the commentator said. That being said, public comment is inherently subjective, and it's inappropriate for a board member to attempt to change the description of a public comment because the board member might consider the comment to be subjective. So I think we need to be very careful about this, and when we move to our rules discussion, we need to spend a significant amount of time on this issue. Alec, I heard you say in your comments that we need to develop proper tools to accurately reflect public comments. Well, nothing's going to be perfect. And I think we need to accept the excellent job that Jessica has done in capturing the essence of public comments. And I think as a board, we need to work to encourage the public to share their opinions with this board. We need to make it easier for them to do that. So I'll leave it at that. I have more comments when we actually have our rules discussion on this issue, but I think this is a very significant issue. And I'm glad you've made this motion, Alec. Thank you.
Any other comments? Trustee Vogel.
Yeah, I don't want to prolong this because we have a lot on the agenda tonight, but I will say that I completely agree, Kathy. Absolutely, a local government works because it gets lots of citizen input, and we're developing more and more ways to do that. That said, a 3-minute public comment, if we ask, how many, 2, 4, if we ask the 5 or 6 of us to summarize a 3-minute public comment in 2 sentences, each of our 2 sentences would be different, because how we hear it is a reflection of who each of us are. And so, to me, it's an inherently impossible task. And I agree with you, Kathy, we have an important conversation to have. And there's various elements to it. What I hear us all in agreement about is absolutely, let's find ways to hear the public, whether it's a communication to the board via an email, or hopefully, as we get out of COVID, if we ever get out of this COVID, and we're in person, to begin to have a face-to-face connection, a knowledge of a name, a handshake, a hello, the beginning of a relationship and a connection. We need that. And so I really look forward to that norm being a part of things again. So I'll just conclude by saying it is an important discussion for us to have as we get into what we seem to be calling rules of order. There have been past practices that didn't attempt to capture public comment. There's many options, but I want to appreciate and recognize Trustee Jerome for making the motion, for acknowledging the difficulty of the situation, and recognizing we've got a path forward to work through this.
Is there anyone who hasn't already spoken who would like to comment? Right. Sorry, Clerk Flintoft.
It's okay. Yeah, thank you, Alec, and everybody on this. And again, I want to say, I know everybody's intentions are golden. I just want to say we cannot conflate inadvertently the issues of how I keep the public record with substantially diminishing or eliminating public comment. And I will say, this experience I've shared with my colleagues, my concern, my First Amendment concerns about this. And I will say, yes, we each of us 7, we can talk about, is there the truth? Is there a way to record things? But I will again just ask my colleagues to zero in on trying to make the record more correct. Those 3 scathing words that Leanne said, she said those 3 scathing words. There is no roll-up. And so what you get in the draft minutes is already a shortened and sanitized version of the public record. And so I do my very best to tell the truth. And frankly, I was elected as clerk. I'm the only one of the 7 of us who actually has the responsibility for recording the record and presenting it to the board. So while I continue to welcome constructive input from my colleagues about how it should be done, every time it's the responsibility of all of us as we go through each set of minutes to say what's accurate. And after this experience, I am not inclined to shorten the public record or shorten the remarks of the public. So I just want to separate that. I think what we're dealing with tonight is clearing up any violation of First Amendment rights or perceived violation of that. The rules conversation is separate. And with that, I'm happy to support this and appreciate everybody.
If there are no further comments, please call the roll.
Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoft? Yes. Jerome?
Yes.
Knol?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And then, Trustee Jerome, you had another motion.
I would just like to table the approval of the minutes as presented in the packet, just for the lack of the opportunity to review. They simply, unfortunately, weren't included in the packet in a timely fashion via whatever issue, and so I would make a motion to table.
I would support that.
So we have a motion by Jerome, support by Flintoft. It's a motion to table, so there is no discussion. Please call the roll.
Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoft? Yes. Jerome?
Yes.
Knol?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next item is communications to the Board of Trustees. Clerk Flintoft.
Yes. I want to apologize. We don't have the file in the packet today. I will include those communications received in the next packet. My responsibility entirely. The communications we have received are more plentiful than ever, and so the ways in which we compile and archive the communications, we need to adjust a little bit. So would ask everybody's patience to just give me no more than 2 weeks, and then I'll provide an updated interface for the communications file.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is public comment. And this is the first public comment. This is the time for members of the public to speak for up to 3 minutes on any items on this agenda. Later throughout the meeting, the supervisor will ask for public comment on each item on this agenda for possible action. You may comment now, or you may comment later when the item is discussed by the board, but only once on any one item. If you wish to comment on an issue that is not on the agenda, there is time for general public comments at the end of the meeting. I guess we don't have anyone with us except for our presenter. So I ask that you raise your Zoom hand to be recognized. And members of the Board of Trustees may either raise their hand or otherwise signal me, or in the case of our one member participating remotely, either raise your hand or your Zoom hand. Trustee Jerome has agreed to serve as a timekeeper. He will announce when there's 30 seconds remaining and then time up. And out of fairness, please stop speaking when your time is up. And I would ask that no one be interrupted during his or her remarks, that members of the public will each be given one opportunity to address the Board of Trustees on any one issue. Public comments are not an opportunity for back and forth dialogue. However, at their conclusion, a member of the Board of Trustees may ask for recognition from the moderator to respond to a question of fact. Although we cannot help but have some repetition, please try to avoid reiterating the same points which were made by previous speakers, and please do not involve personalities. Be as factual as possible. With that, are there any members of the public who would like to speak?
There are. I'd like to start with Jillian Carey, followed by Kathleen Brandt. And if I could, I just want to mention to the members of the public joining remotely, you cannot see who else is on this meeting remotely, because we're running it through a different way that works a little better on our end. But there are 29 people in attendance. And with that, first Jillian Carey, followed by Kathleen Brandt. Jillian?
Good evening. Whoa.
Hello.
Is there an echo?
You're good.
Okay, sorry. The written and established rules under public comment says that that under the possible action items there is time for public comments, and the approval of minutes are possible. They're listed as possible action items, even if they are tabled, whatever. But I'm going to speak on that. Thank you, Trustee Jerome, for correcting your previous striking of comments. I do want to address, I was not in attendance during that meeting, but I do have the recording, and there were a lot of residents that were upset, and I got bombarded with, and understandably. What I understood is that Clerk Flintoft was not in attendance, and Trustee Knol was, along with the other 5. So when the striking of the public comments, because they were subjective and whatnot, the board voted 5-0 or 5-1 in approval. This does not make sense to me. You are citizens of the United States. You know what the First Amendment is. And to even consider voting to strike public comments, it's really, really concerning. So with that said, I'm going to leave it there. And I do appreciate the backtracking and covering up the mistake that, or not covering up, but correcting the mistakes that you've made. But I still have concerns that, you know, the public, the residents, are not valued or respected. Thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. Next up is Kathleen Brandt. Kathleen.
Hi, this is Kathleen Brandt, 2534 Roseland Drive. My comments are going to be subjective, so just to make you aware of that from the beginning. I believe they're factual, but I also believe they are highly subjective. The comments of, or the correction of Trustee Jerome, in my opinion, rings hollow to me. I was in that meeting, and it was very clear that he was trying to deny people their voice and take away their First Amendment rights. So now to come back and apologize and make a correction, I personally believe the correction is based on the outrage from the public and their comments back to the board. Also note that I find it to ring hollow because Trustee Jerome was the only person to vote that citizens must come to the meetings in person. He was the only one that voted that, so this seems to be a trend to me. Also regarding comments from Trustee Vogel, these also ring hollow to me. She voted for the omissions. I'm not going to call them corrections. She clearly voted for the admissions. What I would love to hear is an apology from all 5 trustees that voted for that travesty to take away people's First Amendment rights. My comments were not taken out, and all my comments, I believe, are recorded correctly and certainly convey my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Can I respond?
Well,
Maybe at the end.
next up is Leanne Phillips Note. Leanne Phillips Note, followed by Alice Owings. Leanne?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
After my public comments were stricken, I've been thinking about the role of resident criticism in Scio Township and attempts that we're seeing by some on the board, planning commission, and local committees to suppress criticism, and I hope my reflections may be of use. The Guardian just did a piece on the claiming of anger in social change. Anger is the human response to being threatened with unfairness, the author said. Anger drives us to demand accountability and is a powerful force for political good. It's often what drives us to form creative, joyous, and politically vibrant communities. Many Scio residents feel great anger about the misuse of power being demonstrated by some of our trustees, including the recent attempts to censor public comment, the insertion of the Honey Creek pathway into the master plan draft without consulting residents who live there, and the motion to return to in-person board meetings, allowing only trustees to participate fully by Zoom. These and many other actions are unacceptable, and residents are demanding change. And in this way, criticism and anger are sources of good, because only through naming our problems can solutions be found. And our upset can push Scio to become a more just community if leaders find the courage to listen and choose a different path of behavior next time. But doubling down on wrongful behaviors only makes everything worse. To share one scenario, residents were so grateful when Trustee Knol and the clerk attended the Railroad SAD meeting to learn firsthand about the issues. They then expressed disapproval of Scio's overreach at the next board meeting, along with our treasurer, with concrete suggestions for change. And that was really an act of community repair. But Trustee Jerome, it was really undone by your motion, which wholly altered my message. And I'm happy to hear now your apology But at that meeting, you said you were removing it because you believed my criteria were subjective and not based in fact after I have shown proof repeatedly of Scio's mishandling. So I just think we've entered very dangerous territory when resident criticism is stricken from the record. And this should be a red light, an immediate stop to all that this is the wrong path. And I just want to say,
30 seconds.
the Supreme, I want to say our concerns are real, they're not false narratives, and we will not be silenced. I just want to urge everyone to get some professional consultation on how to effectively engage with the amazing community, face our concerns, and confront the issues so we can all grow and better our community together.
Thank you. Next up is Alice Owings. Alice?
Thank you, Jessica. I didn't have my hand raised, but I'll be glad.
Did you not want to talk?
No, my issue, I guess, with this conversation is that folks interested in their First Amendment rights, I think that's important, but if you keep reading, there's also the 14th Amendment, which is the equal protection provision that says that no state or local subdivision of a state will deny to any person within its jurisdiction equal protection of the laws. So I'll still say one more time, I've said it many times, and it's fallen consistently on deaf ears, that my repeated challenges to what I believe are incorrect, incomplete, and in fact a non-conforming budget, my comments on repeated Open Meeting Act violations, including the fact that the minutes for this meeting were not posted within appropriate Open Meeting Act timelines, my comments on the DDA situation, my comments and my, statements about the grant action, you won't find any of those in the minutes at all. I am sanitized out of the minutes. And it seems that if we are making a substantial effort to include, factual as well as subjective comments, that I made quite a number of factual comments in there, and they're simply not reflected in the minutes. I'm delighted through the records retention discussion, we were able to ensure that the videos are saved. But I do believe that, the current outrage about First Amendment rights is a little late coming. And some of us have been, I think the word everyone likes to use, warriors, out here, but some of us are just, kind of on our own. And perhaps our voices are not being equally protected.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
Caroline Altamar. Caroline?
Can you hear me?
Yes, hi Caroline.
Very good. Hi, Caroline Altamar. I live on West Street. I, first of all, wanted to just completely second what Leanne mentioned. I mean, she said exactly what I wanted to say and said it very eloquently. So I just want to put a punctuation mark on her comment. And also encourage the board to get, apparently, it seems that the board could use some assistance in establishing procedures, some professional assistance. And I think that would probably, her suggestion on that, I think it would be very well founded. I also want to mention that I believe that Clerk Flintoft does a really good job. And with, trying to condense comments and that kind of thing, I just want to say, I think she's doing a great job. My other comment that I wanted to make was in looking at the agenda with all of the various SADs that were going to be discussed, brings up my concern about the lack of urgency to reestablish the roads committee in its full and useful form in this township. Right now, it's viable on paper only has one person in it. And in the last discussion, there was a back and forth thing about to start it right away or start a study group and that type of thing. And I just think all the SADs should be postponed until we get a roads commission with fully 7 members established in a full and proper way, and have members on that are going to abide by the charter and going to abide by the rules of statute 188, and agree to work together and keep the township informed. I think that that's very, very urgent. I'm surprised that it's not on the agenda today. I'm looking forward to seeing it on the agenda sometime very soon, because I think that's an extremely urgent piece of business that the board needs to take care of as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Next up is Jonathan Greenberg. Jonathan.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Jessica, I first would like to start by hoping and wishing you a good time off, that you had time to rest and relax from the awesome job that you do, but I can understand it's probably somewhat stressful and taxing. Vacations are wonderful. I hope you had one. I also like to thank all of the residents who called shenanigans on the board's behavior, well, with one exception, the board's behavior in trying to censor their residents because of the, we'll leave that there. Do appreciate the board reconsidering it. I would also like the board to reconsider their decision to move forward with the manager model, a issue that many of us don't feel has been resolved to the interests of the residents or the township in general. And finally, I think the fact that so many residents responded in the way they did and achieved the results they did with regards to a somewhat intransigent board is really telling to the power of a few people in the community being persistent and disciplined with their message. So thank you. And again, one more exclamation point next to Leanne's comments, far more eloquent than I could ever make.
Thank you, Jonathan. I see no other Zoom hands. Will?
What could I just make?
Oh.
Yeah, if there are responses to the public.
I just wanted to clarify that my attempt was not to censor, and I clarified this once before. I'll clarify it again. My concern is the objectivity of the public comment. I encourage everyone, I actually stated that I agreed with people. If you think my apologies are insincere, I would caution anybody to be making assumptions about an individual based on a Zoom meeting. What I would really encourage people to do is, first and foremost, allow somebody to make a mistake and allow somebody to make an apology. It is wrong to condemn somebody on a single action or an action.
Recording in progress.
Without giving them the opportunity to speak to you. What I would encourage everyone to do is, rather than write at us, speak to us, talk to us, rather than writing at us, so that we can continue to have a dialogue. And maybe then really we could all get to know one another and actually get to a really more refined idea of where we are and what we can do and how we can work in common things. That's all I have to say.
Oh, it's Trustee Vogel.
I want to just make sure that, Alec, what I heard you say, and I want to make sure what you meant is what got said. You said it almost sounded like you said the objectivity of the comment. And I want to reiterate my concern about the impossibility of summarizing a public comment objectively. Comments, by their nature, are subjective. They reflect views of an individual. The concern that we're wrestling with is how to capture a summary of those comments objectively. That's the issue at hand. And here's an example. Jessica, as you moderate the public input, I hear you say thank you to many of the speakers.
I try to say it to everyone.
I did not hear you say thank you to Alice Owing, for example, who had a more, who had a particular, so again, it's just an observation. We all live with an internal inherent bias. What's that? Implicit bias. It's part of our human nature. That's what we're trying to figure out how to wrestle with in the capturing of public comment. I want to reiterate, Trustee Jerome, I, as a trustee, have zero intent to suppress public comment, full stop. It's not the issue at hand. The issue at hand is how to ensure we have an objective summary of those comments. I just want to apologize.
All right.
Alice, I am sorry if I did not say thank you. I do try to say thank you to everybody. I was thinking about asking you a follow-up question and I spaced, so my bad.
Trustee Knol. Oh, you're muted.
Muted.
Sorry. I wanted to respond to Jane's comment. All township boards struggle with this issue. And one way you could educate yourself on how other boards have handled it is to review some minutes from other townships. And you might notice that Pittsfield Township also tries to capture the essence of public comments in their minutes. So they typically have like 2 or 3 sentences, not just one. But if you look at other townships scattered around the area, they all do it slightly differently. Some have more information than what we have, and some might have less. But it's an issue that everyone has struggled with. And I think at some point we all have to accept that, yes, the public comments will be inherently subjective. That's common sense. So we also have to trust that Jessica will do her best to capture them, and we will review them and impose possible amendments to make them clearer if there are issues. So I'm just saying this is something that we should be able to easily handle because other townships have done it and it can be done.
All right, let's move on to our public hearing. We have one public hearing. We have one public hearing this evening to receive comments and objections on the proposed ordinance to amend the Township Code to replace Chapter 34 Utilities in full with the additions of a new Chapter 34 Utilities to replace the current Chapter 34 Utilities, Article 1 in general, Article 2 water, and Article 3 sewers. And I believe we have, before I say that, any member of the public may address the board when the public hearing is opened, and everyone will have one opportunity to speak with an individual time limit of 3 minutes. Please, if you're present, come forward to the table and state your name and address for the record. If you are participating remotely, raise your Zoom hand and let us know that you would like to speak during the public hearing. Please direct your comments to the board as a whole and not to any one individual. We have, I believe, Steve Wigoski, our Utilities Director, to provide the background, overview, and explanation of the ordinance. Steve, would you like to proceed?
Point of order. Are we going into the public hearing yet?
I think the way this works is we have the presentation and then I call the public hearing.
That's what I was clear.
Steve, can you unmute? I see Steve and Steve Wigoski, our Utilities Director. He is not unmuting. He is non-responsive, and it's not that serious, but just on Zoom, non-responsive. And Colleen Coogan. Steve, you are the lead presenter here. You can also use the phone if you need to. Text me if you're having an issue. If he is having an issue, one thing I might suggest for you to consider is that Steve could also do the overview prior to action. And I can put Colleen Coogan here on notice as maybe doing the backup. Our township attorney is also here. Oh, here's Steve Wygowski. Steve.
Hey, good evening.
sweat.
Sorry, I stepped away for a second. So I'm assuming we have the ordinance revisions is on the agenda right now?
Yes, that we've introduced the hearing on the ordinance changes, and I introduced you to give us an overview and background.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And hopefully I'm not on the big screen and you guys don't have to look at me in larger than life size, but yeah, so
You're only a third of the screen.
So Clerk Flintoft, the Woodhill Group, Conrad Schiller, our attorney, and I have done a thorough review of our ordinances. As you know, the sewer ordinance had to be revised to match many of the industrial pretreatment program requirements from the city of Ann Arbor. And we have cleaned up the water ordinance to be more enforceable and coherent document. So I guess with that, if there's any questions, I'll answer to the best of my ability.
If I could suggest a question, Steve, would you please just give a broad overview of the reasons for the revision and what we are trying to accomplish?
Sure. So like I said, for the sewer revisions, those were required by the, as a contributor to the city of Ann Arbor, we have to enact an ordinance. We have to enact an ordinance that's similar to them by federal requirements. For the water ordinance, we wanted to clean up some of the language. There were some designations in there about supervisor, township, director. We tried to make that more, a little more generic, so it gives us more leeway on enforcing the ordinance. Some of the highlights of it were we have specifications for water connections. We have hydrant rental fees established and enforcement of that. Another provision is the ability of the utilities director to waive an amount not to exceed $5,000 for a hardship application. Of course, if that came to my desk, I would run any of those things by the township supervisor. A big part of this also was making an equivalency with the water meter size to the sewer size as far as for connection charges. So a 2-inch water meter would have a 5 residence equivalency unit charge, and that would be the same for the sewer. Currently, the sewer residence equivalency units are established by a square footage or the number of classrooms or the number of dental chairs. It's a convoluted formula, so we've simplified that. We've also put in the ability to recover costs up to a year. In the past, that's for both us making a mistake or for the good, or making a mistake where we've charged the customer too much. We put in an imminent danger clause, which allows the township to shut off sewer service for hazardous substances that might be discharged to the sewer. And I think that's kind of a brief outline.
Oh, sorry.
I just had a quick clarification and comment. I just want to make sure, maybe it was changed, but in section 34-32, the hardship application, It says, need Conrad to weigh in on Gelman Plume, Stephen Conley to work on some draft ideas.
Thank you, that's out.
Okay, I just want to make sure that was pulled. That's out, I didn't know if that had been amended.
Yes.
Two, I wanted to thank you for, because I find it of particular concern for the township, the inclusion and clarification of wastewater and the discharge to creek that was in section 3485. I think it's particularly germane because of some of the PUDs that are being proposed and the community wastewater issues that are being presented when developers are coming to the township. So I was very happy to see that included in these measures. So I just wanted to make that comment and thank you for that inclusion. And I also liked some of the enforceability of, that we were trying to create with creating a response and a requirement for people to follow those rules and to give us something that we can enable the township to act on. So thank you for those changes.
Are there any other questions, comments? Oh, Trustee Knol.
Yeah, I had a general question for you. In terms of the community wastewater system, how does this particular ordinance differ from the one we currently have?
You know, I'm not certain on that matter. You know, our sewer district is established in the master plan. It's clear where our sewer district is not moving. So I'm not sure what changes were made by Conrad, the attorney, but I think he cleaned up some legal language there.
Yeah,
I'm not sure with the community wastewater on-site sewer systems.
Right. I'm not sure of the difference between the two. Like I say, Conrad cleaned up some language, I believe.
So Kathy, to maybe get us on the same page, are you talking about Division 3, Community Wastewater Utility System, Section 34-192, intent and purpose?
What page is that?
61.
Which one?
It's not.
I just wrote this down in my questions.
Oh, okay.
Reference section.
So what I see from that major section, Kathy, and my memory of our conversations is that that section was unaddressed because the main purpose here was to go through and make sure Steve and his team had enforceable rules, regulations, and the right, you know, that everything was up to date. The engineer also signed off on all of this.
Okay.
There are no further questions for Steve, and Colleen's not going to speak to this at this point. Okay. Then I'd like to open the public hearing at 8:52.
7:52.
Oh, sorry, 7. Is it 7?
Yeah.
No.
It is 7:52.
Oh, I see.
That is inaccurate.
All right, 7:52.
Would any members of the public like to speak at this time on this proposed ordinance? I see one hand raised from a phone number starting in 248. Yes, please state your name and address for the record for this public hearing. 248.
Hi, I meant to lower my hand, and how do we lower our hand?
No problem. I am going to lower your hand.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Paula's hands down. This is just on the proposed ordinance. I see no, Roger Rayo. Roger.
Well, I was just following along, and I got to a point on, I guess it was G1, now it's H1, and was trying to open the PDF in the, let's see, what is it called here? And it gave me a error, XML error, and so I couldn't open the PDF that relates to the, I think what's on the, what we're talking about here. So maybe there's another link. It's the proposed CH 34 utilities ordinance for adoption.
Correct.
Yeah, under the item that's headed agenda number H1, when I click on that, now it's giving me, it might just be following the links, because now it's saying document is trying to connect to Ledger Web Production 3 anyway, and it still gives me the same error, which says the XML file does not appear to have any style information associated with the document tree is shown below, and it's just an error message. So I don't know if you can try to do that at your end and see.
Roger, I just got a chat here.
Communication for you on that, and but so I'm really not sure what the, what the content is on this. Maybe I'll try to look it up on the township website and see if that link resolves. That's all.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Roger. We have a chat here from Rob Pattinson, who has offered to help. So if you could just chat with Rob, he'll send you the link. Make sure you're looking at it.
Is there any other members of the public who would like to speak during the public hearing?
Paula G. Paula, and please state your full name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Paula Gloverson at 159 Rockwood Court, and about on-site sewer systems. And there's been a long history where Trailwoods is now located. They did not have the capacity with current
Paula, I think we lost you. Paula, I'm sorry, we lost you. Okay, I see no other interested public. I'll let you know if she comes back on.
Okay, well, if we take that up for action later, she can also comment after every time as well.
Good.
This doesn't make sense.
Seeing that there are no further members of the public seeking to speak, close the public hearing at
7:57.
7:57, thank you. And that concludes our public hearing on that item. That brings us to the consent agenda. The consent agenda now contains 4 items, that being I1, 2, and 3, and item I9. Is there someone who would like to move the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Palmer. Support. Support by Jerome. Please call the roll.
Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoft? Yes. Jerome?
Yes.
Knol?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Consent agenda passed.
Brings us to unfinished business. Item J1 is adoption of an ordinance to amend the Township Code to replace Chapter 34 Utilities in full with the additions of a new Chapter 34 Utilities to replace current Chapter 34 Utilities, Article 1 in general, Article 2 Water, Article 3 Sewers.
Yes.
Now, if we're out of turn, the trustees first, but.
Well, we've had a public hearing, we've introduced this item. Are there further comments from members of the Board of Trustees?
It's long overdue. Let's go with it.
Are there members of the public who, is Paula, has she rejoined us? Is she able to finish her comment?
Paula, you're there, start talking. No. And I see no other hands raised.
Well, in that case, is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Moved by Jerome,
I'll second.
second by Vogel. The motion is to adopt an ordinance to amend the Township Code to replace Chapter 34 Utilities in full with the additions of a new Chapter 34 Utilities to replace the current Chapter 34 Utilities, Article 1 in general, Article 2 Water, and Article 3 Sewers. Please call the roll.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Flintoft, yes,
Yes.
Jerome,
Sorry, yes.
so enthusiastic. Knol,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
the ordinance is adopted.
Next item is item J2, possible action resolution to increase water and sewer fees. And I'm going to ask Colleen
Colleen and Steve.
and Steve.
Steve's got the lead, yeah.
Sorry, Steve, you're up again.
Okay, great. So, a presentation was made back on June the 8th, a slideshow presentation on the need for fees for special services. And again, these are fees that people are requesting that have traditionally been paid by the entire water and sewer customers. And for special services, we'd like to institute fees that benefit those special users. So we've gone through the slideshow, and you've had this information for a while. The treasurer had a few questions. We've met, and I believe they've been satisfied. They've been satisfied. And I guess big picture, we're losing money on our water and sewer funds right now, and this is just an incremental dent in that. And right now, the Woodhill Group is doing a rate study, and we'll be bringing that to you by the end of August, hopefully, to give a more long-term, comprehensive study on where we are and where we need to be financially stable, both for normal operations and in the event of emergency breaks or power equipment failures or what have you. So this is not going to solve our financial situation by any means, but it is an effort in the right direction to have the costs allocated to users that are using those services. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Want Colleen to have an opportunity, or is?
Oh yeah,
Colleen, would you like to add anything?
No, I don't. We've worked through this very closely and done a huge amount of evaluation with the utilities director, and I'm very confident and comfortable with his position on all of these.
Supervisor?
Treasurer Palmer.
I was the one that asked to have this tabled, and yes, my concerns have been addressed. I will say I don't agree with all of them, but we went through it carefully, and I'm okay with this. It's good.
Are there further comments or questions? Members of the public, any comments from members of the public?
Comments from members of the public on the proposed resolution to establish fees. Please raise your Zoom hand if you have any. I see none. Will?
In that case, is there a motion? Would someone like to move the model?
So moved.
Moved by Flintoft. Is there support? Support by Jerome. Please call the roll.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Flintoft, yes, Jerome,
Yes.
Knol,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
the resolution passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen and
Thank
Steve.
you.
Nice
Thank
job,
you.
Steve.
Question though, when do these go into effect?
Whoops.
Immediately.
Immediately, okay,
As soon as we can implement them, ma'am.
okay.
Yeah, as soon as we now have the green light from the board to move toward implementation, and it will take a little bit of time to get
Yeah.
everything up to speed.
And we'll make sure that we put that information on the website, and every call that we get in for service, our customers will be notified that they're the charge for services that may have been provided for free in the past.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
That brings us to item J3. This is possible action on a contract for IT managed service provider. And is Jim Murdy with us?
Yes, he is. He's coming in.
So to present this is our assessor, Jim Murdy, who also wears the other hat of being our IT director.
Jim, hi.
Hey.
So Jim, I've just introduced you to provide us with some background introduction for the IT managed service provider agenda item.
Sure. Upon my retirement on September 1st, a big hole of services that needed to be filled, or at least one portion of my job, and that being the IT management and support. Rather than attempt to fill a part-time position to do this, it was a decision made to look for a managed support provider company to do the IT services for us. So we prepared an RFP for all the services that we wished to this company to do. We formed a committee to review the respondents to this RFP, and then the committee has made a recommendation for, as is in the agenda item, excuse me, agenda item, and that would be NetSmart Plus. I guess it's called Lowry Corporation, DBA NetSmart Plus, to provide a fully managed IT service contract for a price of $4,615.15 per month. So that's a very brief recap of how we got to today.
Are there questions? Oh, Trustee Vogel.
Don't you have eyes in the back of your head?
I'm trying to swivel here.
So Jim, very helpful, thank you. Quick question. So roughly 4,000 a year, 48,000 a month, 48,000 a year. What kind of time frame does that represent? Is this person on call? Is this a service that has presence in the office? What does it actually look like on the ground?
There will be nobody that's stationed actually at Scio Township, but when needed, when someone on site is needed, they will provide someone to come out and take care of whatever is needed. This was in contrast to some of the other applicants who were primarily a remote support operation, and they still could provide some on-site support, but it would be more either it would be through third party, or you would be paying a time and materials for anything on site.
So is this basically a troubleshooting sort of role? I've got an issue, here's who I call, or is this someone who's looking strategically, holistically at the IT needs and capacities of the township?
It would be the latter. They call them virtual CIOs, and this is a person who actually works closely with, usually there should be somebody identified at the township to work with, but somebody that would help put together budgets. Essentially everything that I would be doing, this person would take care of. They prepare budgets, they could attend board meetings and answer questions. They work strategically to help solve problems and come up with sometimes even a long-range plan for equipment replacement, modifications. Essentially, it is a proactive type of, this VCIO is a proactive role. Even though they're not going to be sitting at Scio Township, they're going to be responsible for all the planning, the budgeting, and everything that, other than the just technology and fixing computers. So one is a proactive and the other is more of a reactive, which would be something,
Right. So I assume
problems, who to call, et cetera.
Got it. So I assume it would start out with, we have a consistent relationship with someone from this firm. They get to know Scio Township in terms of our IT profile, needs, capacities. So they're on site long enough to get to know the profile of what's here, I would assume.
Yes, that's the hope, is that there's a single person, and I've heard that once in a while, especially through COVID, that there's so much turnover, you never actually got comfortable with these. So it's we'll hope for the best, and that we can actually have a consistent VCIO and be able to establish a nice relationship.
Clerk Flintoft.
I just want to thank Jim and everybody else on the committee, especially our two volunteers, Marjorie Nepp and Asmat Nouri, who are two community experts in their fields. And so this process was really thorough. I certainly don't know the first thing about, IT managed services before we started, but I feel really confident going to this new model. I will say this is going to be a really big shift for the township, about as big as having a new assessor or any new key position is moving to this model. I'll also say it's more expensive. Just like everything, when we have good people retiring to replace or try to replace them, it's going to be much more expensive. And, we're having a few of those now. It is a whole set of services, but Jim has shared and his confidence that we're going to be well satisfied. We're going to have actually more immediate and more comprehensive support than we even have now when all of us are texting Jim on his cell phone. They sufficiently met all of our concerns, addressed all of our concerns about recovery time, about really, important critical infrastructure around elections or utilities, networks. And so at the end of the process, I was really impressed, both with this model, but in particular with this firm. So I think it's worth giving it a whirl. Believe Jim Murdy, when you were reviewing this with our township attorney, you found that first whirl would have to be at least 12 months. Is that correct?
Yes, right. After
Okay.
12 months, we then with 30 days notice, you can cancel the contract for any reason within the first 30 days. Within the first 12 months, the contract be canceled, but it has to be for cause, generally some kind of a performance issue. And that was to resolve the issue that they do not charge a fee. They call it an onboarding fee, and many of the other applicants charged an upfront fee to take care of getting essentially all the equipment, bringing up to speed their knowledge. NetSmart does not do that. They've built in the cost of the onboarding into apparently the first 12 months. So they want at least a commitment from Scio Township that they can recoup that cost. And after 12 months, presumably that's happened. And if for whatever reason Scio Township wishes to go elsewhere, that would be an option with a 30-day notice. Just one other comment I wanted to make regarding onboarding, and this is going to be happening, as soon as a contract can be signed with NetSmart, presuming they are approved. We would take probably the next 30 days while I'm still on board to help communicate everything that I know about the plans, the technology, the network structure, everything that I can possibly transmit to them, I will do so that it's a smooth transition. And by the time of my retirement, hopefully they'll just be off and running without a lot of phone calls to me after the fact.
Are there other? Oh, Trustee Knol.
I had a general question. Number 9, indemnification. And I'm wondering, according to the provisions of 9.1, the customer, us, Scio, responsible for a lot, for all, we would hold them harmless for all damages, liabilities, charges, and expenses from all claims, lawsuits, and other proceedings. I'm just wondering, did our attorney review the contract?
Yes.
And he said this was fine?
Yep, he had a couple of things that he wanted to change, which were done in the addendum. So he was satisfied with everything except the essentially the termination clause.
Okay.
Are there any other comments or questions? Members of the public?
I see 2 hands. Let's start first with Jonathan Greenberg, followed by Rob Pattinson. Jonathan.
Hey, don't know much about insurance and stuff like indemnification, but I do know about IT stuff, and I've been doing this for decades. And I just want to say you have received really good advice from your committee. I don't know this company from any other ones, and they're all stressed for, we're all stressed for good resources right now. So it's hard to hang on to technical resources. But given that circumstance, you're even better off served by a company such, a third-party service provider. So just want to say, you got good advice from my perspective, and all the normal tripping points were avoided. And so, Jim, I've never met you, but have a good retirement. You guys did a good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Next up is Rob Pattinson. Rob?
Hi, thank you. Rob Pattinson, 500 North Sea. Jim, I was able to watch the IT meetings on Zoom, and I was impressed with your process and your volunteers and committee. One of the things I remembered was one of the issues was some of the proposals had proprietary equipment and software, and some were sort of open source equipment and software. And I'm wondering if the one you chose did indeed end up being open source equipment and software. And you had a very long list of your required services, and I'm wondering, did this ultimate proposal fill all of those required services? And was there anything on your wish list that you had to let go of because none of the proposals came through with that sort of thing? Is there anything missing from what you would like the township to have? Thank you.
Thank you. Nothing was missed that I know of from NetSmart. I was actually quite surprised. The one long shot had to do with penetration testing, where they periodically they actually attempt to break into our system and compromise it. I guess in a friendly, they call it a friendly way. And they were actually able to include that in their contract as well. So there will be some penetration testing along with, just monitoring after the fact, which is a really good thing to have. I can't claim to be an expert on security, on cybersecurity, but we were very, very lucky to have. Remind me of his name. I'm sorry.
Asmat Nouri.
Asmat. He's a security, I think, a director of security for the University of Michigan. And so we were really fortunate to have his expertise. So I would defer to, excuse me, anything that, anything security related, I would have deferred to his expertise. And he was pleased with both this company and the kind of the runner-up. Both very good security systems.
Great.
Do we have any
Next
other
up,
members?
yep, Roger Rail. Roger? Roger, would you like to speak?
I think you're muted, Roger, if so.
Unmute. There we go.
Hi, Roger.
All right, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm sorry I wasn't really paying attention to this all this time because of the gown situation. But this is what I did for many decades, and including with Jim at the township when we were provider of the software. And Jim has done a great job in extending, and I think going forward. Will the committee that was involved, will that continue? Because what I'd be most concerned about as a township resident is that the kind of loss of institutional knowledge that Jim has, whether that can be somehow codified in the township, either in staff or by volunteers, to make sure that everything proceeds smoothly afterward. Sometimes that ends up being a department head or the township administrator or something like that, but it'd probably be good to tap some of the resources that we have. We have tremendous resources here in Scio Township, as you've heard from public comments all along, and to use some of those resources in productive ways. And this might be one of them where they have some kind of an ongoing standing committee to help staff and administrators deal with situations that they're not as familiar with as maybe Jim has been. So I don't know how you could adjust that. You've got 12 months here with this firm.
30
That's something that the board could maybe think about and set up and before Jim retires. And I'd like to hear if Jim has any thoughts on that too. Thanks.
Thank you, Roger. I see no other hands. Will?
Jim, did you want to respond?
I guess I haven't really given it any thought, so I guess, sorry, Roger, I can't really comment on that. It's just something I've never thought about.
Well, we're gonna try not to pester you in your retirement, but we do know where you live.
And we have his number.
That's right. I was gonna say. We've all got your way of texting you. Well, if there are no further members of the public who would like to comment, and no further comments from members of the Board of Trustees, would someone like to move the motion?
Support.
So moved by Vogel, support by Palmer. The motion is that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of NetSmart Plus as the township's IT services provider and approve the attached services agreement prepared on 7/15/21 and the addendum prepared on 7/23/21. Please call the roll.
Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoft? Yes. Jerome?
Yes.
Knol?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Jim. Great work.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to item J4. This is authorization to establish a position of township administrator and an update on the search process. And we have two speakers, our own HR consultant, Diane Benson, and we'll introduce the other speaker, Amy Sell. Diane?
Hi, good evening. I'm joining you from Denver, Colorado. And if you hear a cry, it's my 5-day-old granddaughter. Yeah, very exciting. She was born early, so nobody's getting any sleep because she needs to eat every 2 hours. So,
Is this your first?
it is.
Oh,
So first
yeah.
grandchild.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, pretty exciting.
Wow.
So, to start my presentation for this evening, let me just get to a different view here. Since May 11th, when the Board of Trustees adopted the Township Administrator model, we've been discussing and developing a Township Administrator position. I've talked to many people. I've researched other positions out there in other townships and came up with the position description that I'm going to go over in a little bit. Next week, I'm going to try and get together with the clerk, supervisor, and treasurer to finalize what work needs to be done on this township administrator model. I will be leaving in mid-September to go back to return to retirement. But I must say, being involved in the township, I will be involved as a resident. All right. Looking forward to that. In my next, 6 weeks of work, there's still a lot that needs to be done. And some of the other positions in the township administrator model include the HR generalist, which I have almost completed the draft of that, a project manager who will probably assist with all the various committees, special projects, perhaps the SADs. So those are the two other positions that we have. And then there was another one we've talked about, whether a type of administrative position, administrative support position. So before I talk about the township administrator, I just want to say that this is not the same type of manager model that I feel that Scio Township has had in the past. We have new funding, new initiatives, and the growth of the township. Really, we need to find somebody with a varied type of skill and experience from in the past. The position description I will present is very detailed. It is almost like a to-do list. I wanted to make sure that we had all the areas covered that this position could and should take part in, which will help us work with Amy Sell and her team to find the best candidates for the position. And certainly I'm open to any edits if you see fit. And let's go over the position. The one thing I asked my son here is, do you have a printer? And he said, no, so I've had to handwrite everything. So the township administrator, I put a working title of director of operations because this really is an operational type position. The funding is to be determined by the Board of Trustees, and the salary is going to be a full-time permanent position, although I really call it regular position instead of permanent. Exempt, meaning exempt from overtime, and the range is $80,000 to $110,000 per year. It could be that we have it $80,000 to $100,000 per year, with a stipulation that a higher salary would be possible depending on the experience and the education of the selected candidate. What I found in my experience is that if we have a range, the top part of the range, somebody looking at this position with the years of experience would feel that they belong at the top. And perhaps it is that looking at other positions that we have in the township,
We don't want to have a lot of salary compression issues with other positions, other director level positions, manager level positions. So that's open to discussion as far as I'm concerned. This position right now reports to the entire Board of Trustees, including the clerk, treasurer, and supervisor. And the person would supervise or have oversight of the office coordinator, the director of utilities, the fire chief, and also the consulting contracts that we have, whether it be public safety, engineering, planning, and the new IT consulting group that we're going to go with. Work location, Scio Township Hall, of course. Remote if needed. So the township administrator is really responsible for the day-to-day running of the township's operations, providing effective methods in business operation. So I think it's important to find somebody who has a breadth of experience in operations. The incumbent will also work to develop, interpret, and implement township policies and procedures, and certainly make sure that we're following all the statutes and ordinances. Decisions made by the administrator will directly impact the effective function of all the township services. And somebody that can come in and improve operational systems and processes to better support what the township needs. And the administrator is responsible for various areas of operations, but may not necessarily be performing individual tasks and may delegate as needed. Of course, when it comes to the fire department, they probably won't be performing those tasks. But they can delegate. They don't need to do every single job in the township, but know about the operations of the township. Know how best to have the workflow in various areas. Responsibilities, administration. Be able to monitor, evaluate, and supervise the administrative services and information management across all areas of the township, and those areas are listed. Effectively administer all reporting departments and associated personnel, including the ability to recruit, just like the other directors and managers have. Excuse me. And also provide professional development and manage performance. Track implementation of the board's approved action. And also organize and chair the bi-weekly management meetings that we have. Important to research and develop best practices, workflows, cross-functional work teams. So if utilities needs help because their admin is out, the administrator would have the ability to find who could help out or on a particular project. Assist the supervisor under finance. Assist the supervisor in preparing and administering the annual budget under policies formulated by the board and state law. Allergy medicine is not kicking in. Act as a purchasing agent for the township. Collaborate with others to guide compliance with bidding procedures. Conduct all sales of personal property which the township board may authorize to be sold. Contract management, that's what we're talking about with the IT contract. To coordinate and administer township contract negotiations, including zoning applications, industrial tax, farmland agreements, and all others that may come to the township. Continually study and provide input to the board as the best way to leverage in-house staff versus the use of outside consulting services. Can what we want done be done in-house rather than hiring a consultant? And let's see. Other things, monitor relationships with the outside contractors and consultants to ensure effective communication and best practices, and prepare, review, and execute contracts and subcontracts for authorized disbursements for services rendered. Information technology and data management. This would probably be the person that has that should have the most knowledge about IT and serve as the township's chief information officer to manage all the ability to collect and share usable information across the township and to the residents and increase efficiency, and also open data to the public. Data structures are important, and data extracts to support data collection, loading and extraction for complex analysis. Collaborate with others to develop the township's use of the geographic information systems, GIS, across utilities, parks and pathways, assessing open space and protected natural areas. Management of projects. Although we may be looking for a person that will do special projects, this position will serve as the manager of the projects, the overall project manager, including development of project management best practices and processes. They will participate in strategy development with the officials and will be responsible for assembling a project team, including members of the public, like we did with our IT, where we had two extremely two people who were extremely knowledgeable about IT. Create a budget if needed for a special project for approval, of course, and develop a schedule. Make sure that the schedule is being followed. Produce reports, and following the completion, a final report, which would include reflecting back on what worked and what did not work for that project, so that the next project could be done even better. Human resources. Although we will be hiring an HR generalist, the township administrator will serve as a human resources director, including bargain for employees, and direct the HR functions, recruitment, hiring, performance review, professional development, compensation, best practices, and employee relations. Participating in the contract negotiations for bargain for staff in the fire department, and maintain relationships with the union representatives. And also serve as the township training officer to make sure that we are providing training that is necessary, or training that training that's required or is recommended by others. Facilities management, responsible for the preservation and maintenance of the township property, tools, and equipment, assignment of office and workspace, participate in construction and renovation projects as needed, administer requests when you have a new person coming in and we need a new phone number, cell internet access, and coordination of disposition of property. Township meeting coordination, attendance of the Board of Trustees with the right to take part in discussions, but not without the right to vote. This individual will assist the supervisor with agenda preparation, including assembling components, tracking the queue of potential agenda items, and inclusion of status updates. And then we'll partner with the clerk and supervisor to manage the Board of Trustees meetings logistics, including room preparation, technical needs, taking minutes, or assigning the responsibilities to others. Of course, we'd like to include this caveat that the responsibilities and reporting relationships may be modified based on the needs of the Township of Scio, and of course, with the from the Board of Trustees. Qualifications, you can read those. Most importantly, a bachelor's degree in public administration, business administration operations, or associated area or equivalent is required. A master's degree or graduate studies in data science, urban or regional planning, public administration, public policy, public health, or related field will be preferred. 5 to 7 years of administrative professional work experience. Giving preference for those who have served in government or public administration. And then the rest you can read. Some desired software experience, certainly want with somebody that's can use all the different Outlook and Microsoft Office, et cetera. But also it would be nice to have somebody that has a familiarity with BS&A and with GIS. So any questions from the Board of Trustees that I can answer?
I don't see any questions. Oh, I do see a question. Trustee Vogel.
Bob, the resident extrovert. This is excellent, comprehensive, robust. Thank you. The one area that raised a bit of a flag for me was the notion that this person is going to somehow report to the entire board, basically to all of us. And I want to understand, is there, and you or maybe Amy can address this, what are some norms out there? When I use the word best practice, I think about where are best practices around us. The notion of an individual reporting to 7 doesn't leave me feeling like I got it yet. Yes.
Yeah, I'm happy to comment on that. I don't know if I need to be.
No,
you're fine.
Well, you do need to introduce you. So,
Sure.
Diane, do you want to take a second and introduce Amy?
Sure. This is Amy Sell, and she is the owner of Amy Sell LLC and has a great staff that some of you have talked to. And we're really excited to have Amy work on this search with us.
Thank you. So glad to be here. To answer that point, I have done quite a few city manager or township equivalent searches or village searches, or worked with a variety of municipalities. And it's very common for the person to report to the full city council, up to 11 people, or board of trustees at a commission. So it's very common, and I found in my experience working with these communities that people that have experience in this role know that they they really thrive in this environment, which is very different from a typical structure, unless you're maybe a CEO that has a board of directors, for instance. But it is very customary, and finding a candidate that would thrive in this environment is something that I'm looking forward to working with.
Any further questions from members of the Board of Trustees regarding the job description?
Just thank you for all that effort.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, you're on mute.
Now, in terms of I'm sorry, Kathy, were you seeking recognition?
That's okay, because I just wanted to say it was excellent, and Amy, thank you for your comments. My sense is that many of the township administrators / managers, whatever we're going to call this person, they are used to working and reporting to the entire board. That was when we interviewed previously for a township manager. That was the experience that we had. So thank you.
Clerk Flintoft.
I just raised my hand for a long time.
Oh.
I just want to thank Diane for pulling together some of the best ideas from a whole array of perspectives. I think you did a great job. I think this is a really solid job description, describing some of the duties that we really need either done or done better around here. So thank you, Diane. And every time you say 6 weeks until you go, I panic a little bit. So you did note that you'll be meeting with us, and happy to meet with you when you're back to talk about the other positions. I do think that project manager or, sustainable community development director, whatever that position is, I think is another big piece of a lot of the needs that we've been talking about here in terms of managing, some of the pathways and the roads and the Buy, Protect, Sell and all of these kind of new initiatives. So whatever shape that takes, I think of as kind of a peer position. And just want to be clear that, Will and I have talked about this, and we're still, have to kind of regroup and figure out how to take on those kind of outstanding decisions that were raised in our administrative committee around, the delegation of authority and things like that. So I'm glad that this is all moving forward. And I want to thank you, Diane, for pulling together a solid description.
Oh, Trustee Google.
So I want to make sure I understood what you just said. This project manager position, you use the expression a peer. The project manager position would report to this director of operations. They wouldn't be peer.
It could be. In the prior, I don't know what I'm saying. I mean,
that's how it's written here.
I don't see project manager written.
That probably needs to be an add then. That's a very good observation.
It says other positions as assigned.
Diane, I wonder if it's worth pulling out in particular. I do want to recognize the residents have passed a .65 park and pathway millage. It is currently attended to by community volunteers and a trustee. The request for this position originated with the Park and Pathway millage effort in 2019. We need the project manager position to support parks, pathways, as an early concept included also an SAD project manager role. As a sustainability task force gets off the ground, maybe it fits into that scope. But and I like that we've centered around calling it a project manager role, knowing that that's also got a planning piece to it. That to me sounds, there was some verbiage in here somewhere around, this person, this director of operations has ultimate responsibility for project management, but would have someone reporting, someone they would delegate things to. That's this other position. It would, so this director of operations would be delegating to, I will just call it the project manager, for lack of a better, someone's got to come up with a more creative name. It is a reporting relationship to this director of operations. If that's true, then I think it ought to get specified in the supervisors and oversight of.
I was just to say that we can't solve all of the details of all of the other positions in this. I think it's, in some ways, it's kind of covered in other positions as assigned. And the way that Diane described it, I think it would operate the way that you're referring to.
And if I could just clarify, James, I was saying that because we left this conversation off a couple months ago, and where we left it, the project manager that was proposed in the township administrator model reported to the supervisor, the sustainable community development director, reported to the supervisor. So those were kind of, roughly the same-ish kind of needs that both models were trying to get at, and both reported to the supervisor. So I just want to say, I don't think it's in conflict at all. I think that's all good. I was just referencing where it had last been left because no further deliberation or decisions have been made. Does that make sense?
I think so, not completely sure. I do have a question.
Okay, Trustee Vogel.
Only because I don't have a background in local governance, politics. This is a whole new deal. For many of us that are new to the board, I want us to be crystal clear about this whole topic of delegation of authorities. I know lots of it is statute driven, but for us new kids on the block, let's make sure it's the 101 level so we all get it. We really understand the decisions that we as a board need to make. I know lots of you folks have been in this game a long time. You gotta keep the playing field even, so we all understand the delegation of authorities and the specifics embedded in that.
Are there other comments from other members of the Board of Trustees? Well, I think the way that we were going to do this is we were going to have the motion on this item first, and then we were going to hear more from our consultant, Amy Sell, on sort of update on the search process and any other decisions that might be associated with that. So is there someone who's ready to make the model motion to approve the proposed job description as presented? We have a motion by Clerk Flintoft.
I would be happy to support it.
Support by Trustee Vogel to approve the proposed job description as presented, and that the FYE 22 budgeted authorized positions be amended to add the exempt position of administrator with salary range of $80,000 to $110,000. Are there?
Is it 110 or is it 100 based on the rationale Diane was sharing?
I think it's as proposed, 110,000.
Okay.
And I think.
Good with that.
With that motion on before us, are there members of the public who would like to comment?
Sorry, everybody, we're gonna get a bigger screen here. The first.
When a person from the public speaks, is there a way to see them?
There is, if we invite them. That hasn't been our practice, but.
It would be great. We need to build relationship. We need to have a connection.
I agree.
And whether we start at this meeting or the next meeting, I would really request that let's at least have a face so we can begin to create a connection.
Except that we're sort of popping that
No,
on
not right now.
public.
Not right now.
Yeah, no, not
Let's talk
right
about
now.
that for the next
But what I
meeting.
will pop on members of the public, because I don't mind doing that to the 25 people in attendance, just shoot me an email regarding your thoughts on that idea. I'm supportive of it. We just got to set up a protocol and not, catch anybody by surprise. Okay.
Well, shoot you an email as long as that stays transparent to the board, please.
Of course. If anybody wants to read any of these emails, they may. The first up is Caroline Altamar, followed by Kathleen Brandt. Caroline, hi.
Hi there, again, Caroline Altamar, 3709 West Street. Question regarding this position. It seems like this position is, actually I have more of a question than a comment. This position seems to be pretty crucial to have input on the master plan of the township, which is in the process of being, finalized sometime this year. What is the plan to have them dovetail or have this person be able to have some, since they're going to be administrating the master plan, it seems to me it would make sense for them to have some input on the development of the master plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Next up is Kathleen Brand. Kathleen?
Hi, this is Kathleen Brand, 2534 Roseland Drive. I want to compliment Trustee Vogel for stating that we're all sort of newcomers here for local governance. and some of us in the public residents spend a lot of time learning about these things. And I think we do collaborate with you on that, Trustee Vogel, and I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Anybody else? I see no other comments. Will?
In that case, we have a motion on the table, or not on the table, we have a motion before us, and I guess we can call the roll.
Great. Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Flintoft? Yes. Jerome?
Yes.
Knol?
Yes.
Vogel?
At the risk of breaking protocol, enthusiastically, yes.
Motion passes.
The next item is our report, an update on the search process from Amy Sell.
And Amy, you are here. If you would like to share your screen from there, you're welcome to. All right, right on.
I'm not sure I don't see the normal icon to be able to do that.
Real-time tech assistance.
I know.
Yeah, watch out. Oh, I know what I need to do. Yes, I have to bring her in. Bring her in as a, as a participant instead of just an attendee. Sorry.
You have to be remote and in person.
The things we learned in the pandemic.
Great.
Okay, so you should be in again, Amy, and
Should I stay muted for the audio, or will?
would you please? Yes.
Share video.
And you can also turn off your camera. There you go. They're all on the Post-its, but that's as far as I know.
Nice. Now let me get the right document. Right.
You're okay.
Well, I don't see it. Except I can see a document, you all can't. Yeah. I'm actually seeing words on my screen, so.
Oh, yeah, Kathy.
Should I share my video? Will that pick it up?
Share your screen?
Or share my,
Oh, share screen, right.
Just within Zoom, yeah.
yes, I am.
Yeah, it says you are sharing here on Zoom, and it says that I am viewing your screen.
I will stop sharing right now.
We hired that IT assistant.
Right.
Well, it feels like I'm at home. It would be a Board of Trustees meeting unless we had technical difficulties at some point.
Try some. Apologies, it was such
No,
a
no,
good
it's-
technology
It's a
time
brand new
until.
system at this end, so I'm
Yeah,
I'm sure
Thank you for your patience.
anything we could be doing to.
I'm gonna try doing it in a new format.
Is it possible, could you send the document to Jessica, and Jessica could
Yeah.
share the document? I don't know. if
Which
it would work or
document
not,
is it?
It's just a thought.
Is it the,
Yep.
is it the
That would
grid
be
that's
fine.
in the?
Well, I put together a little bit of a timeline.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna, instead of putting it in like a Word, I'm gonna
That's that, Jim?
Yes, yep.
If not, maybe she's possible to verbalize it. Pay attention. It's nice to cheat on that.
Okay.
There you go, yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Make it much bigger.
And so, all right. All right, so for what I wanted to do was just provide a little bit of an update about where we've been so far and a draft timeline for going forward. So my team and I have enjoyed getting to know 18 people, key board members and staff members and stakeholders that have provided us wonderful input on the criteria to look for in this role. So I have put together what I call a talent rubric or a list of selection criteria that would help drive the search. As you'll notice, conveniently, it does match up fairly nicely with the qualifications section in the job description. What I would do after getting the approval from the job description is then roll this into more of a job posting that would be outward facing. So usually a job description is extremely detailed and very specific and is exactly what you have approved. But then the job posting is when we market it to potential applicants, where we try to sell the community and then be authentic about the opportunities and challenges that the role would come into. And you all have provided me excellent feedback about what some of those opportunities are and challenges, so we make sure we get the person with the right personality and experiences and approach to be able to be successful in the role. So I wanted to make sure that it was important that we get the job description nailed down first, so that I could refine the job posting with the information that has been approved. So I will be able to, so I'm suggesting that I will come back at the next meeting to, I can either further clarify anything about the selection criteria that I will go over after going through the timeline, as well as I will have a job posting for you all to review. And once that posting is approved, then I would launch the search. So we would post it in numerous government-related job boards, as well as general job boards. We would heavily use social media to get the word out. I do have a distribution list and database of municipal professionals that we would network with. And then we leave the job open for about 4 weeks. And then during that time in parallel, we would be assessing candidates as they come in. So we immediately look at their resume, send them a written survey with a particular set of questions. Those that are looking like they meet all the qualifications would then do a video interview. So we would get that video interview. We would also do a phone screen to go through their career history, motivations for the position. We also would do a little bit of a cyber review. Many of these individuals have been in the public area, so you can find there's a lot of information that you can reference that way, as well as a basic background check and reference checks. And then this would take an extra week on top of the search process, because some candidates do kind of wait till the end, and so we need to make sure we can go through this process. So after 5 weeks, we would be able to present the board of trustees with about a 30 to 40 page deck per candidate, wow, as well as a video. And then we would like to provide you with at least about a week to review all this information in a secure manner. And then we would have a meeting where you would select the finalists. And that meeting is usually done in closed session, because most candidates are allowed to request confidentiality under the Open Meetings Act for their application materials to be considered. So many of my former clients have done it in closed session. Another alternative is to just use a number identifier and to do it in open session, but just to not to make any references that would identify the participants. So either way is fine. But then once you all select the candidates, and after I confirm that they're still interested in going forward, the rest of the process is in public. So we would I would schedule public meetings, usually a panel discussion with the Board of Trustees. I would also do a staff panel And we can do a community reception. You have a wonderfully engaged community. So there's ways for us, especially with Zoom, to be able to do a community forum, allow questions to be provided in advance and asked to the panelists. And then community members can provide feedback that I would collect along with interview panel feedback from the staff and board panel. All this information would be compiled and provided to you all to help with your deliberations, which would then be done in an open session, open meeting following that. At that time, you can either decide to bring in candidates for more interviews, or you might decide, we don't have the right one in this mix, go back to scratch, or you might decide to move forward into negotiations with a candidate at that point. So that is how we could kind of work. So I kind of tried to lay out the time frame based on the board meetings that you have scheduled, as well as my preferred timing on these different activities, and have tried to lay out that here so that, again, interviews could take place the week of October 4th, and me in a position to make, possibly enter into negotiations on October 12th. I would like to come back and finalize the time frame at the next meeting, because once we launch the process, we like to have the interview dates nailed down so that we can communicate that with the candidates right away so that they can save the date, and that way there's a very the shortest amount of time between when you all decide to bring in a candidate and when those interviews happen, because oftentimes candidates are interviewing for multiple positions. It is a fairly heated job market right now, and I don't want to lose anybody because there's been a delay not getting them in here as quickly. So I do try to accelerate the time frame once we get going. You obviously want to make sure the foundation is set on what we're looking for, but once we do launch the search, it is expeditious so that we don't lose out on any good candidates. So I'm happy to answer questions right now. Or I can talk a little bit about the criteria and touch on that. Yes.
I think it sounds like a great process. I just want to reflect, I know Donna and Kathy and I, we took part in a couple of search processes recently, a good one for our wonderful fire chief, Andy Hood. The community town hall worked really well. People loved that. It was very nice. Also with the search, the failed search for a township manager 2 years ago, one thing I liked about that, the recruiter did a really nice job of presenting in open session. Actually, it was all in open session, but he did de-identify and sufficiently anonymize the information so that they were comfortable with that. And that was nice to do. And even for us to guard against implicit bias, he was sure to kind of keep certain identifying factors like names and other things away from us. So I was just wondering kind of what's your take on that or approach to dealing with our implicit biases related to name, assumptions about race, or name, city that they may have worked?
That's a great question, and it is a hot topic in talent acquisition right now. And but my experience has been that it is not, that the need for you all to really know the candidates and get to know them on a deep level, because it's such a critical position. And even if you're looking at a video, obviously you're going to learn a lot about them and know what their race is, and may pick up on other things based on your experiences. But to strip away and so that you couldn't identify people and I don't think it would put you in a position to make a successful search. So in the experiences I've had, people have really sought diversity and have sought a diverse applicant pool, and that is something that I really strive for, is to have that applicant pool. So it's a great point to consider, and if I were to sense some concerns about how applicants were being viewed, I would make sure to kind of facilitate that in a thoughtful manner to avoid it. But I'm not comfortable with not letting you know who the candidates are. I think need to know that, especially with the importance of, I think, communication skills and leadership skills that have come out in this. That was a great question.
Trustee Vogel.
So, again, great process. One question. When we actually get to the interview process, do you provide a set of interview questions?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes, yes, we will give you interview questions based on each of the criteria, as well as an evaluation sheet, and we will be collecting and summarizing that information.
Now, are you going to go over this rubric and we're going to deal with those questions later?
Yes, I can go over the.
Well, I don't want to jump us ahead. But
oh, yeah.
I just want to know, Kathy Knol has her hand up.
Oh, I can't.
And I just had one more follow-up question on this time.
How can you
So does
oh, you
Alec.
can see it on the screen there. I guess I don't know.
I
Alec does
have
too.
good eyes.
You have pretty good eyes. Trustee Knol.
Okay, I had a general question. What is your sense of the market right now out there?
Well, the market is very, very hot in general. There is a bit of a talent shortage for a variety of factors. For this particular position, though, and the recent equivalent positions that I've done, we've generally identified 7 to 10 candidates that I've been able to bring to the selection group.
That's good.
Yes, and I already have heard from one person that would be amazing that is interested. So I think, so I mean, you have an amazing community.
We do.
You all.
We do. I would imagine this is going to be very sought after. This is an awesome community.
Yeah, and I think your salary range I'm glad to see the salary range it is, because it will give you the most access to the largest number of candidates, because many of the highly qualified candidates would be in that range from I've seen in terms of their salary expectations. So, and we'll always, I won't be putting this in the posting. We always ask people what their salary requirements are. I will be sharing that with you all so that you will see it, so that if you see someone that's really, really amazing above, you'll have that opportunity. But on the other hand, if somebody has lower salary expectations as well, it puts you in as strong a negotiating position as possible. But it's nice to have. I like having that flexibility.
And Amy, what would be? Oh, sorry.
Alec had his hand up. Sorry. Oh.
I don't know if Kathy's done, and it's fine.
I can't. How you can see anything up there?
Anything else, Kathy?
Yeah, I'm done. That's good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Just-
This is a follow-up from our last process. I'm really glad to hear, one, that typically, or in recent history, it's been 7 to 10. I don't know promises, never know. That's great. I'm also appreciative that we have some higher level of qualifications set forth in just this job description than we have in prior job descriptions. However, in our last process, and we got a set of candidates, and it was a 5-2 vote ultimately to make the offer. 5-2, in the 2 were the supervisor and the clerk. That said, when we went forward, even with a good salary range, and that recruiter also encouraged us to describe the perks, the extra benefits, this and that. That became kind of an issue when we got to negotiations, because there really weren't clear shared expectations between the township and the candidate about those those benefits, which were adding 50% to the cost. And they were benefits that were extraordinary, but the recruiter at the time told us that they were quite typical and within reason. Now, we're such a small organization, about 25 employees, so things like a car allowance and this and that you might have in a bigger place, we just typically don't do that. And when it came, so I would just welcome your guidance on not getting in the same position that we got into last time, where we got down to negotiating and it was all of these extras and moving allowances and this and that got us into trouble. And it may be different because I know you're based locally and have a lot of contacts around here.
It'll be That's a great point around expectation setting and
Yeah.
benefits. So I would, maybe at our next, when we come back, or I can either take a look at your current benefits that you would typically structure or what was in the last.
That would be great. Diane can give you all of that.
Yeah, so then we can just go forward with what you're comfortable doing.
Yeah.
It's, many of the recent negotiations I've been in have not involved a car allowance.
Good.
And they've just been the customary benefits of, vacation, the healthcare. But understanding what you normally offer will be key to make sure that that's clear with the candidates, as well as maybe even, again, a draft contract if there's something like that available.
Sure, we can get you
Yes.
that.
Trustee
I
Jerome?
just quickly want to actually second Jessica's point. I think it's super important that all the trustees acknowledge the unconscious bias that you might have within yourself. And I think keeping that front of mind will help us as we evaluate candidates. I understand the complexities of presenting the candidate to us so we can make the evaluation. But I do think that it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're aware of that ability in all individuals, whether or not you think you have or not. There is unconscious bias. So I just want to second that point, that we need to keep that in mind as we evaluate any candidate or any individual that we have and discussions and or work. So thank you.
Did you want to go through the rubric with us today? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just maybe touch on, I won't read it, but I know you have seen it, so I'll just maybe touch on some of the highlights.
And feel free to share it with the public who's watching too. So.
Great. So I made up for that. I was quickly able to do that one. Good. All right, I'm getting there. Yeah. So again, I think this was in the agenda packet, so it should be available for public to see if they can't quite make this out on their Zoom screen. So the themes, so I have kind of a must-have column, which were themes that I heard very consistently and seemed to be critical for the success of the role. And then I also heard some other areas that I would be more of as ideal candidates. It'd be nice to have, it'd be great, but my focus and my team's focus is really only on bringing candidates that meet all of the must-have requirements. So this is kind of our target when we're looking for candidates. And I will take another look and update it after the job description's been approved. I feel it's fairly well aligned. The key thing, obviously, municipal knowledge and experience did come through, and so finding people that have this type of knowledge does limit the pool quite a bit from like a general, somebody that's a more general executive or leader. It was very, very clear that I think communications was one of the top areas. And so I think everybody was very honest and authentic in sharing preferences and maybe issues that have happened in the past. And so very clear on someone that can work effectively and share information with 7 members of the board, that does not filter the information but conveys it in kind of an organized fashion. Outstanding listener, very straightforward. So again, lots of great feedback on the communication skills. And so that'll come through really through the video interviews. You'll see that you'll see written communication from these candidates. We will interview them, you will interview them. So by the end of this process, everybody should have a very good sense of their communication skills. We'll dive into that on the reference checking. Human resources, kind of acumen and orientation was mentioned as well. So somebody that values human resources and is looking forward to embracing that new HR direction that the township is going. A variety of other personal qualities that came through. Project management experience. I know there was some good discussion around project management in this job description, as well as bringing in another project manager. But the ability to kind of align stakeholders, delineate what needs to be done, organize that work, strong multitasking ability. It's just came strong. That's going to be a big asset that this person will bring. And then just lots of things that would fall into that leadership skills bucket. Because it is, there's a need to kind of be supportive, manage conflict, facilitate the variety of different perspectives and other things that I listed in here. So there's, again, I think those qualities kind of go without saying as well. And then I kind of also mentioned here how we would look to assess these different attributes when we make the decision about who to present you with. So happy to answer any questions about this as well, but I think it makes sense to just vet let it set. I'll bring back the job posting, and then maybe at their next meeting, we can nail down the time frame, rubric, and job posting.
Trustee Vogel?
I think this demonstrates very, very powerfully how well you have come to know us. This in communication, the whole part about doesn't overpromise. This just gives me confidence that you have come to know this township, the need. So thank you for that. The one thing I was surprised not to see pop out more strongly is the word strong financial acumen, but I would look to have that theme a little more fully developed. Put those words in the right order. More fully developed around the strong financial acumen. And whether that gets tucked under municipal knowledge or as a standalone.
I can break that out as a separate one.
I think it's a standalone. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Thank you.
Other, Clerk Flintoft.
I'm sorry, so many of my questions go back to my recent experience. Do you have a strict definition of municipal leadership experience? The prior recruiter had a very strict definition that was like in or out. And kind of how do you assess if somebody has the municipal leadership experience?
So in my view, they supervised other people in a municipality.
And then the working knowledge of township governance. So they may have had municipal leadership experience outside of Michigan, in a city inside of Michigan, something like that.
And there's definitely a desire. The ideal person has worked in a township. But I am hesitant to use that as a must-have.
Right. Not many people do that.
Yes, so somebody that's embraced it, that's learned about it, that's been able to prepare and learn about the nuances prior to coming on board is what I would be looking at.
Yeah.
Members of the Board of Trustees?
Shall we bring this off screen now so we can get Kathy back in?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, that would be good because I can't.
Oh,
there we
there's
go.
Kathy.
Kathy, do you have any further questions or comments?
No, I'm good for now. I think I'll have some more questions next time.
Do we want to, this isn't really an action item, so we don't really need to bring in the members of the public at this point, and you'll have a moment in just a few minutes. Well, thank you very much, Amy, for coming and for doing all this work, but also for waiting until this point in the meeting to share it with us.
Well, yeah, it feels like it's given you an opportunity to know us a little more. And
yeah, face to face.
Great.
So,
can I actually say something?
Sure.
I feel like I'm back in school, getting all this down. You know, I am glad. At first I felt, gosh, I wish I had jumped in and brought this earlier on the agenda to not impose the whole meeting on you. But I think you've experienced us as a community, and I so appreciate an email from one of our residents who characterized a lot of us as, we're on a learning curve together. I think we're trying to figure out how to engage with public input in the various modes we're doing that, and I think the public too is learning a new board and how we live within the constraints of Zoom. I just appreciated the very empathetic perspective, and I'm actually really glad you've had the experience of living through a board meeting with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Well, with that, we're moving on to new business, where we moved an item from the consent agenda. This is the proposed budget amendment and authorization for service and maintenance of election equipment. And I believe that is an item that you are best suited to present to us.
Absolutely, yes. I apologize.
Clerk
Kind of confusing. So we have the tabulators and the VATs, the core equipment that we need to run the election. The state of Michigan has a master contract for all of the machines across Michigan that we're all obligated to use. We own 7 plus, we actually own 23 of these machines now. And we paid for 5 years of service and maintenance on each of them on 2 different timelines, because we purchased some in one batch and a couple more last year. Years 6 through 10, service and maintenance were always going to be a cost of the township. And we were going to have to start paying that annually in fiscal year end 2023, so the next budget year. So that's why there's nothing in this budget, because none of these costs were going to kick in until 2023. And as you know, we typically hadn't been, kind of committing, properly documenting and committing funds for future years, especially these relatively smaller amounts in the process. And as a township, we're getting better at that. So I was planning to start paying this in 2023 as required, but wouldn't you know it, Hart InterCivic is providing a time-limited offer to myself and other clerks that if we pay in full now, we'll actually save a full 10% on these costs that we're absolutely going to have to pay over the next 6 to 10 years, over the next 6 years. And if we pay them now, we'll save a total of $4,722. So the question is really, do we want to save the 10% now and pay for it with the general fund balance that we have available? Or do we want to wait and pay the 10% extra starting in fiscal year end 2023, 4, 5, 6, 7, so on and so forth?
Is it an amount you pay every year, or you pay it for the 5-year period?
So the first 5, this is the first time we've ever had to start paying this, because this is the first time in fiscal year end 2023 would be the first time we'd hit the first year 6 of these machines, because these were purchased in 2017.
So my question still stands though. Is the $46,000 an annual expense, or does it cover a range of years?
Mm-hmm. This $46,000 would cover the years 6 through 10 on all of our equipment. It's a one-time cost, and then you would not see any recurring costs in fiscal year end 2023 forward.
Thank you. That's important. I'm glad we pulled this out of consent.
Yes, I know. Thank you. I don't know that I explained it very well in writing.
No, it's good.
The 10% number, divide that by 5 or 6, whatever it is, to see what that is per year.
$90 a year.
Is that what it is, about 90? I can't think that fast.
You're talking about what the savings is?
Take the 10% figure you just gave, and what does that amount to per year for the period that we're talking?
Sure. It's about $800 per year. $800 per year in savings.
The reason I'm asking is that's a chunk of change to hit the general fund with. We've been hitting it pretty hard over the last 6 to 8 months, and I'm just wondering how soon do you have to give an answer? Can we do some exploring?
I mean, it's pretty quickly. I think it's I'm sure they would extend, but this offer came in June, and I believe it's due on or before August 31st.
So we've got some time.
Sure. I don't know what the analysis would be. If the question is, do we have enough in the general fund to pay it?
Fund balance, look at cash.
To pay it now versus later, my opinion would be yes. If the question is, does the interest we earn on the general fund outpace the savings?
I wasn't thinking of that. Oh, okay. Scratch that.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So that's why I'm recommending this.
I was thinking of what, like the per year cost or the per year piece of that 10% savings. That's what I was looking at.
I see, yeah. It would be about, yeah, basically, if we didn't Yeah, it'd be a few hundred a year, but it adds up with all the machines that we have. It's required. There's no way that we're going to be changing equipment unless the entire state of Michigan does so.
Seems unlikely.
There's no opt-out clause.
Right.
There is no opt-out clause.
Right. So let me see if I understand this. Roughly $46,000 covers 5-year maintenance support on our full set of equipment.
Correct.
For the elections. Yep. And the deal on the table is to save the 10%, which does amount to
It's about
$4,600. And
Yeah.
if the general fund can have it, let's do this.
Right. That's what I was hoping.
Let's look and see. Like I said, we keep thinking we've got this pot of gold that has no bottom.
And I would also offer that, running elections is one of our is a mandated function of the township and a inexpensive and important one.
No, my question is paying this big hunk all at once.
Sure.
Or paying it per year.
Sure.
You know, the difference.
Sure.
The costs.
Donna, unless you think the interest would be better, which I don't believe that it is.
I'm not looking at interest.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. Everybody knows that today.
Right.
I'm looking at the cost per year of the 10% figure. Is it worth paying 47,000 now?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it paying it per year as we go?
Mm-hmm.
Although you keep saying this is per year, so monthly, I guess the monthly is the thing.
Yeah, I mean, we would pay, the 47,000 once and be good through, probably the life of these machines. So.
Wait a minute. $47,000, is that for the 5-year time frame?
It's for the one-time cost of all the machines for all of their respective years 6 through 10.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, service and maintenance. So it's a one-time cost instead of having it recurring.
Spread out over time, right?
Right. So I think this is a good idea, and I want to respect what I hear as your concern, which is the cash flow of the general fund. And so maybe for due diligence, it's a good idea to just, if there's not urgency, maybe there is urgency.
So I would say our general fund, goes far beyond our, fund balance requirements. I understand, Donna, but I would just, underscore the board, this is 47,000. I agree that we cannot keep using the general fund for other things, but this is exactly the type of expense that the general fund is for.
I'm not questioning the legality, I'm just reminding us that we've had a lot of things that we've paid a chunk of change. I just want to be sure that we need to be serious about keeping the savings account.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if...
I'll check it out. I'll pass information on.
I'm wondering if Trustee Knol or Trustee Jerome, if you have any comments that you would like to add?
I don't. I mean, I think I'm in favor of it. If in the interest of Donna that we want to table to August 10th so that it could be time for a conversation, so that it could be on the consent agenda, that's the only thing that I would consider if we want to take advantage of that. I think as a requirement and necessity for the township, I think it's unquestionable that we need to do it. It's just the dollars and cents.
Trustee Knol, did you want to add a comment?
Yes, I do. I'm in favor of it. We have to do it. It's pretty clear. I wanted to ask Jessica what her preference is. Sounds like the one-time payment is your preference.
Only because it's a better deal for the township, but I'm happy to table if people want to look at the numbers again.
Well, I would be supportive of doing one time. Whatever other.
Somebody want to?
I was going to say, is this
I'll
what we
make
make
a
a
motion
motion?
to
Right.
support.
Yeah, and I will
So the
second
payment
that.
of the.
So we have a motion by Trustee Jerome, and we have support by Trustee Vogel. But before we vote, since we pulled this out of the consent agenda, are there members of the public who would like to comment?
Please raise your Zoom hand if you're interested in speaking on this item. I see none.
All right, in that case, please call the roll.
Hathaway?
Yes.
Palmer?
I'll vote yes, but please remember my comments for the future, please.
Flintoft, yes. Jerome?
Yes.
Knol?
Yes.
Vogel? Motion passes.
That brings us to reports. First report is on Gelman. Trustee Knol.
So we just got an opinion from the Board of Appeals.
Can you?
I got it.
I wasn't.
It's hard to hear you.
We can't hear you. She's going to turn it up.
Okay. Try now, Kathy?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
We got an opinion from the Court of Appeals yesterday. They have granted Gelman's motion for a partial stay and the application for leave to appeal. So this was the part of Gelman's motion that was discretionary, and the Court of Appeals might or might not have granted it. They have granted it. This appoints the interveners. So the court in their decision left the prior Fourth Amendment CJ in place and only granted the stay or the pause on action for paragraphs 2 and 3 of the prior order of Judge Connors. Now, I don't know if Roger Rail is still on here. He had emailed me a question about the order yesterday. The way the order is written, is he still on, Jessica?
What's that?
Roger.
He is.
Okay. The way the order is written is very confusing. So Roger, I went up to you privately and explained a little bit more about it to you. They didn't put the title in all caps in the order when they were referring to the prior title. So it's confusing because the first paragraph is unclear. I've gone over this with our attorney, and the intervener attorneys have gone over it at length. There is a possibility that Gelman will end up filing some kind of a motion for clarification of the wording on the Court of Appeals order. So we'll see what happens. But right now, what Bill Stapleton is telling me is this appeal will probably take 12 to 18 months. And Gelman has 56 days to file a brief, and then the interveners and the state have a period of time to file their brief. This is going to slow everything down, obviously. So everything is going to be paused for a while.
Wow.
Okay, move on to, so this just happened. I just learned this.
But the CJ4 remains in place, correct?
CJ4 remains in place.
It's just the changes we wanted to make to the CJ4 that have been.
No. So the order that we had entered, Judge Connors had entered this order to conduct response activities to implement and comply with revised cleanup criteria. And this order had 5 different paragraphs.
Right.
So paragraph 2 and paragraph 3 are stayed. That means they're paused, they're stopped now. Everything else is still in place. So according to what Bill Stapleton is saying, the The intervener attorneys believe that Gelman still has to implement the provisions that were in the Fourth Amendment CPA.
You said the intervener attorneys believe.
Believe, yeah.
Is there a question?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this is the way everything has gone.
Certainly.
So, as I said, the wording in the first paragraph of the order is very confusing, and Gelman may indeed file a motion for clarification of that wording, because they may claim that they do not have to fulfill any of the response activities that are outlined in the subject. They may do that. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen here. But according to what Bill Stapleton is saying, Gelman is still responsible for implementing all of the provisions in the Fourth Amendment.
Kathy, would that include the new quarterly report to Judge Connors?
No. No. Paragraph 2 and paragraph 3 included the first quarterly scheduling hearing on September 1st. That is now off. And paragraph 2 dealt with continuing jurisdiction of the circuit court. And now the circuit court does not have jurisdiction anymore. The Court of Appeals has jurisdiction. The scheduling quarterly hearings are now off.
Wow.
Couple other things that have happened is Gelman has filed the required notice for execution of the prohibition zone in Ann Arbor. We can apply but just so we're aware, and this will be posted on the City of Ann Arbor website. Technically, under the provisions of the draft Fourth Amendment CPA, Gelman was allowed to ban prohibition.
Kathy, I missed that. Just the audio was a little bumpy. Just the first part, so I'm clear. You said it will be posted with the City of Ann Arbor and the Gelman's proposed expansion of the PZ, of the prohibition zone.
Yes.
Okay.
Not, they have it. It's in effect now.
Okay.
That was in the draft for.
Oh, yes, yes. Okay, so they are putting that into effect. Got it.
Put the notice provision out there now. We've done the well testing in Scio. We should have the information within the next week or so. This well testing was on private homeowner wells, and it used the more sensitive 522 method for detection of dioxin, which is not the method that Eagle or Washtenaw County uses when they do well testing. So the 522 method will pick up lower dioxin contamination amounts in the water, below 1 part per billion. Okay, so I think that's it. I know.
Yeah. Kathy, I gotta believe that's disappointing for you and for CARD and for everyone that's been on this for so many years.
Yep.
Is there, but this doesn't have any impact whatsoever on the EPA front, right?
No.
Clerk Flintoft.
I would just wonder if we might, at some point in the near future, have a longer kind of presentation and strategy, about this fact. We've talked about what the costs of an appeal might be. We've talked about kind of what that would look like, that slugfest over 24 months. So maybe we could, I think we should have a discussion at some appropriate point to kind of spec that out and make sure that we're ready to be engaged.
So actually, when Bill and I talked, we talked about him speaking to the board in 4 to 6 weeks. Once we have an idea of exactly what's going to happen here.
Okay.
And we'll know then if Galman files a motion for clarification of this order, we will also have a better sense of what's going to happen.
So if we put an agenda item on the second meeting in September,
Well, or we do a special meeting.
or a special meeting?
Just meet with him for an hour or something. Like we've done in the past.
Okay. Well, thank you.
We have a card meeting next Tuesday.
In terms of a report from the supervisor, one thing I'd like to share is one of the things that I've learned in this role is that the supervisor plays a role in enforcement actions in the township in terms of enforcing our zoning ordinance and working together with our code enforcement officer, Doug Luan. One of the things that we've been doing is trying to figure out how to work more effectively with the county. The township doesn't have its own building department. Instead, we rely on Washtenaw County for that function, and we're one of the several municipalities who do. And so we've been looking at that, and we're going to meet with the director of the county building department to sort of explore how we can work together more collaboratively. There's a number of different situations that are ongoing, but there's always something new coming up in terms of enforcement, and often there's an aspect of whatever the situation is where we're limited, the township is sort of limited to in terms of what it can do, but if we could work together more effectively with the county, we might be able to persuade some of the folks who are in violation to do better, I guess. That's something that I'm working on, and we have a meeting coming up to try and explore that working relationship with the county. But there are like so many things that we want to do. We really rely on the working relationships with the county. The clerk.
Sure. Just a footnote on that, Will. You probably know there's been a proposal before, and I don't know how well developed it was, for the township to establish its own building department.
I can get with that, Brown.
Good.
What's that right now?
Absolutely.
No, I was just I was flagging that. I wasn't opening it up. And I want to let you know by the next board meeting, we'll know for sure if we're going to be having a special election in November or not. It looks like we will not. I'll forward you all of the townships that are having one. It's always good to kind of look at who's trying to go for which types of millage or schools or parks or paths or whatnot. In our consent agenda, as you saw, we submitted the first step for the ARP funding. So for the 1.8, which was basically a step to say, yes, we would like the funding. And at our last Budget and Finance Committee meeting, Rebecca Motti provided a good overview of some of the possible uses of it, and we talked about that alongside our first capital plan that we had completed last fall. And Will's going to dig into that with Sandy and update that over the next few months. One, just repeated need that we keep coming back to is the unfunded remainder of the Liberty Road water main, especially given the state of our water fund. So definitely a couple other possibilities too. Broadband is a possibility. There's some other things such as fire that were not allowable under the ARP. So we have a lot of time to figure it out. But in your consent agenda, there's that good grid that really kind of spells out what the funding may be used for. Will?
Next is the Budget and Finance Committee. Or no, you've done that.
There's a twofer.
Yes, sorry, twofer. Treasurer.
Just an update, Diane is working on deputy treasurer's job description.
Good.
And she said she just couldn't have it where she wanted it for the meeting tonight. So that will be coming to us probably the next meeting.
Good.
And just another piece of the pie, guys. We'll get there.
Thank you. The Planning Commission and the Land Preservation Commission are both reports that would be given by Trustee.
She submitted a written report.
Well, I was just going to say, so we have a written report from Trustee Courteau, even though she's not here in person. And I was just looking for them to see if I could reference them, but they're not coming up on my computer for some reason. But they will be available in the minutes, I believe.
The
revised packet.
The
revised packet
continues to evaluate parcels. There hasn't been any actions taken as of late, but we'll be coming to the DOT with recommendations with regard to a couple applications very soon.
Excellent. Well, Transportation Alternative Planning Committee.
It's me. Okay, really quickly, there's, as you know, a lot going on. For this pathway effort in the township, Zebro pathway to border has always been the #1 priority. And so construction on phase 3 continues. We're moving 1,400 feet north of Miller. All that's on, it's about a week or so behind, I understand, just given all the rain. TAP, with good support from Carlisle Wortman, continues to work on additional funding sources for phase 4 and phase 5, and we're kind of playing around with the boundary between the two to enable a couple different funding scenarios. So all that is progressing. Parkland Plaza, after many, many years, is actually going to happen this late summer, early fall. This was our commitment to one of our partners to get it done this year. So what seemed to work well with Zebro phase 3 is we put a little video together, got a letter sent out, and we'll replicate that process for Parkland Plaza. I also, at the last TAP meeting, we had a really good conversation about Honey Creek. And I just want to put a couple things in context. The concept map for these pathways has really evolved. It sort of became the placeholder to just put ideas in, right? And with COVID, and what occurs to me is we need time at this agenda to go through that map so folks really understand it. The least stable part of that map, the least vetted, is this Honey Creek concept. And I will say, I have been nervous about having that on the map because it is so unvetted. And the last year really hasn't provided an opportunity to sit down with lots of folks and say, what do you think? So it's been great to hear, and then I want to connect something here, and I'm going to take a moment. I want to connect something for us. The fact that we don't have a township manager, the fact that we don't have project manager support, 2 years, we've been working this. It's led by a bunch of volunteers, and even as a trustee, I still put 15 or 20 hours a week into pathway stuff. I really do act as the surrogate staff and manager on this. But it's exactly a point that got made earlier. It is so dangerous for a trustee to be this deep in operations because I have incomplete information. So for example, I wasn't even aware the map was going into the draft master plan. I'm not in those communication loops day to day. And I don't know, the map's not mature enough or firm enough. And we need all these conversations to play out. So I just want to connect that. It's so essential. Amy, continue this great work, and we move people on this project manager role. We have got to get that done. All right, all that said, we had a great conversation at TAP. It was so good to have so much input. And the reality is, this is a highly sensitive area. It goes right through a whole bunch of gorgeous wetlands. It touches way too close to lots of public property. So as TAP formulates its recommendations to go into the master plan, we're pretty much saying, you know, at least the north end of this thing, we just need to pull off the map. It is not a viable idea. And even the piece closer to kind of that development at 94 exit and Zeeb Road, we're going to talk more about that at the next TAP meeting, and so hopefully lots of residents will join us. So we'll decide. But here's another observation I'll offer. The master plan has a 5 to 8 year time frame. We've got a pretty good bucket of work to pull off in the next 5 years on these pathways. Getting to Peters Road, getting across that river, getting across those railroad tracks on Zeeb Road and hooking up with the border to border is Herculean, both in terms of expenses and the permitting, et cetera. There are other much more high probability segments for us to be focusing on. So it'll be a great conversation to TAP. Public is welcome, absolutely. And then TAP will be making a motion at the next meeting with the recommendation for our input to the master plan. So I wanted to be clear about that process as we've come to understand it. That's my quarter. It's a little more than a nickel.
Parks Advisory Board.
I'll roll two things into one. So the Parks Advisory Board, we meet next week, but I do want to say that one of the things I want to report on is obviously we're moving forward with some of the recommendations the trustees approved last time. But I also wanted to give we had a rousing, successful tour of Marshall Road property. We had quite a few participants that joined us to get to see our township asset. We have another one coming next month that we'll make sure everyone gets notification of, but I encourage all of the township residents to sign up and see what we have. It's really exciting to get people out there and get to understand and be able to learn and possibly use here in the very near future. Obviously the Marshall Road Park is directly along this segment of the pathway going down to the B2B, so it'll be a great asset to the township. Just a quick comment with regards to broadband. So there was the award of another CMIC grant, which awarded another essentially 700 homes in Scio Township, centering primarily on the Jackson Road corridor that was awarded. That leaves approximately 2,300 still unserved in the township, and obviously we're looking at applying rescue funds potentially to that, like Jessica had mentioned, and I would also encourage, and I've done this at a past meeting, please reach out to your board of commissioners at the Washtenaw County level. They're having a meeting that's completely in relation to this, and they need your input. You need to express, especially, and I understand the difficulty, you need to tell them how much you need to do that online when you have difficulty getting online. But that being said, please seek out, there's a hot spot right here behind I can actually see somebody in their car. I think that previously someone earlier was out there using it. Come to the township, but let the commissioners know at the Washtenaw County, they need to support this. We could be, as I say, the first county in the state to potentially get funds and support over the next 4 years, actually 5 for part of it, the implementation of broadband for all residents in the county of Washtenaw. And I think that's an incredible feat and incredibly important at the same time.
Thank you. That concludes our reports, which brings us to...
Will, may I just make one follow-up comment on the Planning Commission and some of Jane's remarks? Something that we've requested before, I just want to put in the queue again, maybe for August 10th, but definitely before August 23rd. Whatever presentation or red line version, whatever Doug Luan is preparing for the board, so that we can see the changes, what is really being newly proposed.
Talking the master plan?
newly proposed in the new master plan. So for somebody like me who's, not been looking at that map for years and years, when I look at the master plan, it's pretty, but I know that there are some really important operational things in there that I really want to kind of go through and understand. And by the same token too, this came up in the Delhi Railroad meeting, a question, I think it was Rob Patterson brought up. He said, well, what is that list, Will, about those SAD investments? And we go back and look, and it's sort of a peripheral piece of information that I frankly don't even think needed to be in the master plan, that just created a source of confusion and concern. So it either needs to be better contextualized or not. So just kind of what is the, what is the minimum that the master plan is doing, and what is supposed to be sort of the catch-all of extras?
It's related to the, no, I just had a follow-up, and Will, we didn't mention it, but related to the master plan, we also did have a meeting with the city of Dexter with regards to the development and planning of the Baker Road corridor, just a preliminary meeting to discuss some of the opportunities for us to work together. And that you mentioning planning commission, even though I'm not that report, that brings up the fact that I did participate in that meeting, and I just want to make sure that we let people know that we did have that with the city of Dexter.
Trustee Knol.
Well, when I was at the township hall yesterday, I talked to Doug Milan for a while. I had requested that he do a memo to our board outlining the major differences between draft master plan and the current master plan, and a presentation to the board. So I had talked to him like a month ago about that. He said it's on his list, but I think if we're going to do this, we probably need to have this presentation at our first meeting in August.
Trustee Vogel.
There, only because TAP's trying to figure out its input, there's a whole feedback process underway, and there's a date by which feedback is due.
Yeah.
So I would assume our request, so we as a board need to then figure out how are we going to deliberate? How are we, and it probably starts with Doug saying, here's what's different about the old plan, here's the feedback that's come in from the public, here's what the proposed final plan might look like. But
now we're in the process
yeah.
of the 60-day waiting
Exactly.
period, where we've notified all of the adjacent
Exactly.
townships
Yeah.
for input, and then we will begin our process
Yeah.
of reviewing.
Oh, after the 23rd?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
That is
there's
my
a whole
understanding.
process underway.
So that's when it will be vetted. There's different ways to do it. Obviously, it doesn't have to go to the BOT, but we've made that recommendation previously that we want it to come to the BOT rather than having
We
it.
really have to decide if we want, if
Yeah,
we want the plan,
exactly.
if the board of
But that all
trustees.
occurs, I think, after that notification period, if I'm not incorrect.
Well,
Maybe.
we could decide, we could decide any time that we want the final say on the approval of the master plan to be
Right.
made at the board of trustee level rather than the planning commission level. Right now, it's on track to go to a final decision by the planning commission,
By planning.
which is what
That's what I was trying
the
to
township has done in the past. And that is sort of, so that's sort of the norm. But if the
Yeah.
board of trustees wants to be the body that makes the final approval of the master plan, we just need to
Yeah.
vote
And
to
I've,
make
so
that.
I've raised this briefly with Jan and Doug. They seem open,
I'm
but
sure they're, yeah.
yeah.
Maybe you
Well,
can
that-
look at that and then at the next BOT meeting, report back on that. So.
I think we need a report on the process, so we're clear. I don't know if I mean, you and I were both part of a master plan update committee way back when. Maybe our job was to just come up with the draft that's circulating right now. But to some, Kathy's got her hand up. To whatever resident made the input tonight, this new township administrator, this process has to extend long enough to get this person's input, hopefully.
Trustee Knol.
So in terms of the potential new administrator, that we may not be.
May not, fine.
Wait, Jane, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
We need to, I think the board needs to have deliberation and discussion on the draft master plan and approve it or not approve it or modify it. So I do not think it should be done by the planning commission.
I'd be happy to make that motion. What will solidify that?
Well, we could decide it right now if we're ready to do it. We're the Board of Trustees, so if you would like to make a motion that the Board of Trustees be the final.
I don't want to interrupt an ongoing process, and I would trust the process and the folks engaged enough.
It doesn't interrupt the process.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Vogel.
Oh, sorry, Township Attorney, please.
Oh, sorry.
According to the ordinance, it needs to be a resolution by the township.
That's what I
board.
thought.
There's a difference between a motion and a resolution.
Let's tell you what. I'll work with the two of you on a resolution. We'll bring it back to the next regular meeting on August 10th.
Yes.
But it seems pretty clear what the sort of inclination of the Board of Trustees is with regard to the master plan.
And Will, I would just say too, like Eddie.
There was a reason you sat here all night.
A presentation in whatever form Doug wants to walk us through it sooner rather than later. So it's not at the very end point where we're trying to make a decision, that we're first getting the presentation. Does that make sense?
Sure. I think it probably makes sense to have that occur after the 63-day period is up and we've gotten the input from surrounding communities. I think there was an idea that we were going to have another round of conversation with
I would
Dexter.
probably seek consult with Doug about what the process normally is and what it can be, and try to make it a little bit more robust, develop the resolution, and then come back to the board on 14.
All good thoughts. All right, so we have a plan for moving that particular question forward to resolution. And I think that brings us to our final agenda item, which is public comment.
Okay. Any members of the public who'd like to speak, please raise your Zoom hand. First up is Pam Boyd, followed by Jillian Carey. Pam.
All right, good evening. Pam Boyd, 517 Linden Lane. Well, since I've been going to all the meetings, so far I'm one of the few residents who have come in person to make comments to be heard at said meeting. I'm happy to show my face on Zoom at the next bot meeting. My comment, as you know, there have been accusations that residents have been bullying people on committees and boards. We residents are not bullies. We are angry for many good reasons. If there are truly bullies, in the true definition of the word, then it is the bot's job to address this issue as soon as possible. But you haven't. You have let it filter around to different committees and boards, making more reason for your public to be angry with you. Throwing around the term bully without action means it's not important to you. Another way to look at it then is by calling us bullies, it's name calling, and that's not good either. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Next up, Jillian Carey, followed by Thomas and Janet Medaw. Jillian.
Oh, there's this echo, sorry. A couple things. I don't mind showing my Zoom face either. I just may not comb my hair or, wear clothes. I'll have pajamas on or something, but that's fine. The second thing, the Sun-Time News, I noticed that we have a subscription, or we're paying for public, hearing notices and whatnot.
Yes.
But online, they don't show up. I've been looking for them. So is it just in the paper version? Because online, other municipalities show their public notices are showing up online.
I'll look into that. Thank you for alerting me to that.
Yeah, okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thomas and Janet Medaw. Thomas and Janet?
There, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, it's Jan Medaw,
And I'd just like to make a couple of comments. And it was stated earlier that the SAD process needs to be updated. The current one is absolutely not being followed as we go through these SAD processes. And I understand from the earlier conversation that we're going to postpone the public hearings until September. Did I have that right?
That's correct.
I would ask that we not group all 4 SADs in one public hearing. The information is too critical. The information has not been shared about the process, and each one needs to devote time so we can get our answers and questions out there. That's all.
Thank you, Janet. Next up is Roger Rail, followed by the phone number beginning in 248. Roger?
Thanks. I was I'm still concerned about the Gelman situation, and that we're getting rolled up in court without any end in sight. And I couldn't hear all of Kathy's commentary because I think the new sound system there adjusts, it confuses what's coming through your speakers in that room and tries to minimize some background noise, then it gets confused. So I think that's why Kathy's audio was warbling, at least on my end, and I got I see there was a comment there from Rob saying that he couldn't hear the second half either. It'd be nice if that was, if there's a recording of it to post it with enhanced audio, or do a transcript of it so that everybody can hear what Kathy's report was. And if there's I don't want to make her do a written report of it, but that might be required too, because I'm not clear what happened in these last court actions. It seems like we're losing every step of the way. Some of the poison pills that weren't supposed to be in there, according to all the elected bodies that rejected the 4th consent judgment, yet the 4th consent judgment got attached to the order by all the interveners' lawyers. Now, did the lawyers even listen to what the judge said in that May 3rd hearing that was on the Zoom call? Because he seemed to reiterate what I had said in that meeting, that there are some problems with this 4th consent judgment that need to be addressed before it could be put in place. And yet it looks like the 4th consent judgment got put in place as is, including already expanding the prohibition zone without attacking the area of the prohibition zone that's heading closest to Scio Township properties,
30 seconds.
14. So this should not just be kept postponed into the future. And then I went and looked at the website, the Scio website for the Gelman site, and there's not even a linked card on there, nor to Scio Residents for Safe Water, where we have most of the information. So I think this needs to be addressed and corrected immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
Bill, if I could say something to Roger.
Why don't we see if there's other members of the public who want to comment first, and then we'll have a response.
Resident with phone number beginning 248, ending in 903, followed by Paula G. 248.
Hi, hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm representing 3751. Is there feedback?
Not on our end. And
Okay, well,
would you
that's
like
fine.
to share your name?
Melanie Johnson, Melanie Johnson. it sounds like there are lots of feedback.
Okay, I'll turn our volume down, see if it helps. Keep going.
That's fine. But 3751 Miller Road, I represent my family, and I want to say if it hasn't been removed from the master plan, the upper level of the pathway from Honey Creek should be removed. And as I circulated information, which no one had been given, it should be removed from the south portion of Honey Creek. No one had been notified. And if you are notified, a state requirement is to notify people of a plan which has not been done within 300 feet of a planned pathway. So I don't know who you're talking to or if you're disseminating any information to any of the other quadrants to inform them of their rights or that you have plans. But I've not met a single citizen that has been informed by the township of this master plan. So it should all be removed until you talk to the neighbors.
Thank you, Melanie. Next up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Next up is Paula G. Paula G, followed by Harvey Summers. Paula?
Oh, she's the same person we had trouble connecting with her.
Hi, Paula.
Hey, I think it's a great idea of what the last speaker and then I think it was one of the Board of Trustees and I think it was Roger Rail possibly, that instead of just the Dexter Sun Times, that we get the master plan dates, because I too have spoke to people in my neighborhood about the importance of what's going on with the master plan in how important it is. And I commend the idea of this resolution group forming to that Supervisor Hathaway and I think it was Trustee Knol, that we have the Board of Trustees vote on it. But somehow, I know it may be costly, but it would be nice if the residents could get letters, because they don't always, it should be on the website, but I think it's such an important issue that a mailing of all the meetings so that people don't know that this process is happening. But I do love the idea of a resolution that the Board of Trustees vote on it as a unit. But thank you very much for all your work.
Thank you, Paula. Next up is Harvey Summers.
My name is Harvey Summers. I live at 2129 Autumn Hill Drive. I don't know why this public comment has been relegated to the end of the meeting. I'm very disappointed with this Board of Trustees undercutting of what I see as long-term norms of behavior in terms of public commentary in Scio Township. For my many years of attending Scio Trustee and other commission meetings, my experience is that the norm for Scio Township, like many legislative bodies, has been that members of the public are given the opportunity to make their comments near the beginnings of these meetings. Setting a fixed point early in the meeting for public comments encourages residents to participate in our community activities. Since the beginning of its tenure, this board has adopted rules making it harder for residents to make public comments and therefore discouraging residents doing so. First, there was the rule that public comments about an issue on the agenda to be made at the time the trustees reached that agenda item rather than at the beginning. Now, the rule is that comments can only be made at the end of the agenda. How does this possibly benefit township residents? You surely understand that not all residents have the time to wait for an item to be reached on the agenda or remain until the end of the meeting to make their comments. The apparent adoption of these rules appears precisely to me to discourage residents from voicing their opinions. So I have criticism, but in contrast, let me applaud those board members who have unsuccessfully opposed what I see as unacceptable restrictions on the right of residents to speak their minds. And let me very much honor those exceptional residents who, in the face of these restrictions, have indeed remained until the ends of often long trustee meetings to voice their concerns. And finally, true appreciation to the residents who take time to keep our community updated on the actions of the board and other township bodies. I have set a more complete set of comments by email as correspondence for this meeting, which I did not see. I ask that that full written version be included in the record of this meeting. Thank you.
Will do so. And I see no other interested public. We had started to have that echoing effect. Just as a reminder to folks, keep yourselves muted when you're not speaking. Oh, I'm sorry, we have one more hand. Rob Pattinson. Rob?
Thank you. Whatever you just did ended the echo. The echo was huge in the last half hour or so. So thank you for that. It might be that the design of the acoustics in the room with the microphone and the placement of the speakers, it looks like the hanging microphone in the middle of the room is the microphone that is being used for Zoom. It might need some shielding from the speakers that are being used to hear what's going on in Zoom. And I couldn't hear the second half of Kathy's Trustee Knol's Gelman report. And I did indeed, as Roger said, throw her under the bus and ask for her to put that in writing. And that reminds me that I said ago that the written reports from Trustees Courteau and Jerome from the June 22nd meeting were not included in the minutes, and they're still missing from the minutes in this package. And I would like to second what Harvey Summers just said much better than I can, that I believe it's a mistake to move public comment on any issue to the end of the meeting. We're trying to build community here, and that gives the appearance that you're not interested in what people have to say. And that's unfortunate, and I hope that you will change back to the original format that has been true for years, and that is return the any comment to the beginning of the meeting. Thank you.
Great, thank you, everybody. No more public comment, Will?
Trustee Knol, you had asked to have a chance to respond to Roger's comment, Roger Rail's comment.
Yeah, Roger, let's talk privately tomorrow. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, sorry.
And I'll do a written report, Rob.
Well, if that's all, then I think a motion to adjourn is in order. Moved by Vogel, support by Jerome. Please call the roll.